with. What's happening, everybody? Welcome to the show. Come on in, take your shoes off. It's Untethered Live, Politi-tics on a Saturday night. I'm your host, Jake Johnson, and this is Amanda.
Hi, Untethered Live.
Read the chat.
Hi, Untethered Live family. Good to see you all. Happy Saturday. I hope everyone is doing good.
Get a little closer to that microphone.
Hi, Jake. How are you tonight?
Fantastic. How are you?
I'm great.
How is everybody in the chat? Are you guys having a good time so far? Waiting in the wings, ready for a rock and roll show? Yeah, that's what we're going to put on tonight. Boys and girls, we're going to talk about nuclear submarines. We're going to talk about the evil that has infiltrated our country from way back, circa 2008. We're going to talk about whatever the hell you guys want to talk about. So come on in, amp up, get you a nice hot cup of coffee ready, and let's get it rolling. I have a nice hot cup of coffee. Don't you want to have a cup of coffee with me? Thank you to who provides the coffee for the show. It's a good cup, don't you know? If you want a cup, go to the kitchen, pour yourself a nice hot cup, and let's get rolling. If you don't have one, you can get one in the description below. I recommend the first one that has my face on it, but we also have Untethered Live tumblers down there, big ones and little ones, with locking lids and Untethered Live Bible Study logo on the front. It's quite nice. Keeps your coffee hot for hours. Looks good on a coffee table, so get one while supplies last. Also, like, subscribe, share, support, join, and super chats are available in the chat box if you want to show a little bit of love. If you want to, you can do that right over there, or hit that CashApp $ jakejohnsonband, or paypal.me/jakejohnsonband, and I appreciate you very much. One last thing. If you would like to have a place to hang out outside of the YouTubeverse, a place where you can share pictures, text, videos, memes, whatever, get to know one another. There's a great place over there on Facebook called facebook.com/UntetheredLiveChillin'. The link is in the chat. Go check it out. It's a great place to hang out, and the ladies are killing it with the memes. So it's a great place. Go check it out. Hit that subscribe button, everybody. Here we go. Kevin says, hello, JK and Amanda. Hello, Kevin. Nice to see you. Amanda says, Kevin, you get the gold star for being first in chat. Here's your gold star. Kevin says, damn it, Jake. Damn, Jake. What did I do?
His typo E's.
Oh. Amanda says,
what did I say? I don't know. Oh, hi, Kevin.
Read the chat. Read the chat. Follow along. Keep up. And Kevin says, Saturday night equals Night of the Trolls. Yes, Night of the Banhammer.
Yes, I got my tools ready.
Trolls are unsuspecting. They have no idea what's going to hit them. Amanda says,
Said I got my stuff ready for the trolls.
Right on. Me too. Kevin says, LOL. And how's Jake's voice holding up? It's holding up. I'm able to make a quasi-human sound with the vibrating of the vocal cords smacking together. Sounds like this. This is not my head voice or my chest voice. It's not even a voice. It's just vibrating vocal cords doing like this. But I'm able to say sentences, so that's something. I'm one step away from the little thing, but we're getting there.
Don't ever clap your hands together like that again.
Like that? Why?
Carry on, carry on.
Amanda says,
It's still in and out, but it's there.
what is?
Your voice.
Oh, well, lead with that. Nobody knows what you're talking about but you. Pretend that nobody can read your mind and that whatever you say, you have to present it as a way that everybody here that don't know you can understand what you're saying. So the way you would do that was, yes, Kevin, his voice is holding up. It's in and out, but it's still there. The voice is the subject. It is the object. Everybody knows what you're saying. Debbie says, I'm wondering who I'll offend tonight by something I didn't say. Speaking of which, if anybody has a direct line to Ladina, please tell her that there was no offense intended towards her and that she shouldn't feel ashamed because we were talking about a subject like that last night. Nobody was talking in hatefulness. We were just calling it like it is. That's all. And we love her. But it doesn't matter who you offend, Debbie. You're one of us, and I will stand at your defense regardless of what anybody says. Believe that. Amanda says, here's the Facebook page if anybody wants to check it out. Kevin says, hello, Debbie. Debbie says, in and out, Amanda. See, I told you she didn't know what you were saying. It brought to mind an entirely different form of exercise.
No, see, that's just Debbie. She just goes down the dirty train of thought always.
Kevin says, Debbie always thinking. Yep. And Amanda says, hi, Debbie, don't worry about it. Offend anyone you like. We got your back. Amen. And Amanda says, well, I'll let you read that.
My chat jump, hold on.
It's 8:29.
LOL, well, take it. It's either that or up and down.
Yeah. 10 toes up, 10 toes down, two asses bobbling around, having a good time on the ground, taking you to Pound Town. Mount. Okay. Debbie says, hello, Kevin. And Kevin says, Debbie, is it your mind in the gutter or mine? I think it's hers and yours, which is good. Saturday, we need to be in the gutter. What? Are we going to walk around taking this world so seriously? Look at what's going on out there. It's like a cartoon. Our president's going, I saw this in a cartoon once, but I'm pretty sure I can pull it off. Check it out. Listen, you can't take life too seriously. You got to relax, breathe, enjoy yourself. See the humor in it all. Kevin says, in and out. Oh. Amanda says,
I think we all stay in the gutter.
once more with feeling.
I think we all stay in the gutter.
Yeah, here we go. Kevin says, LOL. And Debbie says, no, Amanda says.
Chat jumped.
I guess it did, didn't it? Where'd it go? Debbie says, 10 toes up, 10 toes. I said that already.
She beat you to it.
Do we have two women in here that are in my head now? I can't say nothing. You guys already got it. I'll have to retire the show to you guys. Debbie says, 10 toes up and 10 toes down. Two white bums going round and round. Right on. I'm with you. Kevin says, LOL. And Amanda says,
Debbie getting it.
Amy Elizabeth says, here I am, like any good soldier would say when called. Here I am. How are you, sweetie? Kevin says, hello, Amy. Amanda says, this is the chat room of freaks.
Hi, yeah, this is the chat room of freaks. And then hi, Amy.
Patty's here. She says, how's everybody doing? How is everyone? Fantastic, Patty. How are you? Debbie says, and Amanda is our leader. I thought that was me. Well, go, Amanda. I'll fall in line.
Women rule.
You keep making dinner. I'll follow you anywhere you want to go. Kevin says, hello, Patty. Amanda says, hi, Patty. Amy says, liked, shared, and invited some friends. And brewing coffee. Woman after my own heart right there, Amy. Got that coffee brewed. That's important. It's the most important part of the day. Little Folgers in your cup. Patty says, Miss Amanda, smiley, smiley. That was directed at you.
Me, it was directed at me, Miss. I said hi to Miss Patty.
Okay, we'll say it again.
Hi, Miss Patty.
Kevin says, Amanda's voice sounds much more pretty than Jake's. Yes, Amanda's voice is not dying. It's much, much nicer. That's why she's here. To take up slack for me, because I can't talk anymore. But thank you for noticing, Kevin. I love you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Amy says, can everyone pray for my neighbor Daryl? He's an old man. He wrecked his moped driving drunk. He's in the hospital with a broken pelvis and ribs. Father, we ask that you look out for Amy's neighbor Daryl. Don't worry about his brothers, just him. And we ask that you put your hands on him, Lord, and your will be done always. But we ask that you heal him and bring him up out of this funk that he's in, and may he get his life back together and stop being drunk and driving. Thank you, Father, in your Son, Jesus Christ's precious name we pray. Amen, amen, and amen. I hope that helps. So what's the story with Larry and Larry? Patty says, Maxwell House on 24/7 in my house. I hear you. I like Maxwell House. I prefer Folgers, but I'll drink Maxwell House. It's fine. Those are, interchangeable in my mind. There's a slight different taste. One's a little crisper than the other. But as far as coffee goes, you can't go wrong with either one. I don't like all that nonsense they have. They got a whole aisle full of random-ass, wild-named coffees, different kinds of coffees. I don't want none of it. Folgers and Maxwell House. Good enough for me. Amanda says, oh, no, Amy, prayers for him. Absolutely. Sorry I made a joke about it, but it was kind of funny. Amy says, hang on. Where'd it go?
8:34.
Thank you. Here we go. Amy says, I don't know if Aaron will be here. He's taking care of personal business. Understood. And Amy says, hi, everyone. Hi, Amy. Nice to see you. Patty says, Miss Amanda, you got it, doll.
That's so sweet, Patty.
Kevin says, Amy prayers. And Amy says, everyone told him not to be driving his scooter drunk. He lost his license from driving drunk. Maybe now he'll learn. Not likely. Most likely he can't wait to get up so he can go drive and drink again. But that's just the nature of old men. They're stuck in their ways. I understand that. I predict that Aaron will be here because he's a soldier. And I don't see him leaving me hanging just because of something came up.
Oh, no, Aaron's here. He's already kicked in the door.
Is he? Well, hello, Aaron. I predicted correctly then.
He's got his boots on tight tonight.
All right. Jillian Sproul says hi. Hello, Jillian. Welcome to the show. Come on in. Take your shoes off. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where you from? And what do you want to talk about? Amy says, he'll sober up in the hospital. The detox will be bad. It usually is. Yeah, I don't wish that on anybody. It's rough to have to go through detox. Kevin says, hello, Jillian. Patty says, it looks like Trump is making fun of disabled newscasters. Yeah, they did that years and years ago where he did one of these gestures. He wasn't. He was making fun of that newscaster, the specific one, in which that guy does do that. It might not have been tasteful, but it wasn't incorrect. It was an accurate depiction of who he was talking about. And they tried to spin it like he was being mean to all people with disabilities, and that wasn't at all what he was saying. It's hard, Patty, to use a word like retarded and not include everybody who might be retarded. But most of the time when people like me say words like that, we're talking about a specific individual, not the disease itself. And that's hard for lefties to get their head around because they want to be mad about everything. Delicious. Helps the world go down. Amy says, Jillian, welcome. Hi. Amanda says, Jillian, hi, welcome. Chris Molina says, Hail Hydra. Hydra's not here. This would be a Captain America broadcast, not a Hydra broadcast, just so you know. But welcome anyway. We welcome all kinds, even if you are against the snake. Wow. White girl magic. You need to reevaluate your statistics there and have a conversation with me. And when I'm done mopping the floor with your little low intellect individuality, you may come away with a different point of view. Or not. You might not have the brain power to hold it. Charlie Craig says, sometimes I lay on the kitchen floor and pretend to be a crumb. Sounds like you have no life, Charlie Craig. But I encourage you to spend one day pretending like you're a rib and get up and move around. Amy says, no thanks, Chris. Hail Jesus, and welcome to the show. Right on. Amy says, no racist comments in the chat. You've been warned. If you're going to be racist, at least be funny. If it's not funny, you're just racist, and that's bad. I can get behind a good racist joke if there's some humor in it. If it's accurate. If it's not, you're just being an asshole. Somebody has seen Sydney Sweeney's commercial about pants and has gone off the deep end. That's what it looks like to me. Amy says, double tap the screen to like the video. Yes, please. And Amy says, I warned you. Now you're banned. Sir Batello Pinto says, cannabis? Bricks, your turn. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were saying random words that had nothing to do with the conversation we were having. No. Big Daddy, that's my name. Debbie says, Amanda is the leader of the gutter. Ah, I got it. She is that. Kevin says, trolls coming out of the woodworks tonight. Well, that happens. You get the most flack when you're flying over the target, Kevin. That's all right. At least one of them will pay attention longer than their troll, and we might be able to reel one of them in and save them from the dark side. Who knows? Who knows? Amy says, trolls are active tonight, right, Kevin? Aaron, what's up, brother? He says, boom, the sword has landed. It's on now. How you doing, Aaron? Amy says, hi, Aaron. Kevin says, hello, Aaron. EA is here. He says, hello, Abdullah. Hello, EA. Nice to see you, my friend. Thank you for dropping by. Amanda says, hello, Aaron. No, you say that.
Hello, Aaron.
That's better. I'm in a role and I forgot. It's her turn to talk.
You were doing good.
Yeah. Amy says, hi, EA. And Aaron says, hello, family and friends. Nice to see you, Aaron. Kevin says, hello, EA. EA says, hello, all. Amy says, thanks, Jake. My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. Debbie says, Aaron, did that sword slap your thigh? Good gracious. EA says, what do you say about Gaza, Jake? I say Gaza is in Egypt, and I don't give a shit what's going on in Egypt. That's none of my business. That's what I say. What do you say about it? That particular battle has been going on for at least 2,500 years now. It ain't gonna stop because somebody here said so. I reckon they'll work it out or destroy each other. That's what I reckon. But all things being said, that has nothing to do with me. I'm not a part of that fight, and I don't have a dog I don't have any skin in the game or a dog in the fight. So it's none of my business. If they want to kill themselves, by all means, have at it. I got problems here I got to worry about. That's what I say about it. Amy says, I'm drinking Folgers. Me too. Here's to you, Amy. James Reagan says, I think you need to be quiet. Well, James, I think you need to come over here and make me, son. I have a microphone and a camera, both evidence that I should not be quiet. Clearly, someone wants to hear me talk, or I would not have a microphone and a camera in my face. So, maybe you should take a long walk off a short pier and come back when you've eaten your Wheaties, because you don't know who you're talking to. Little child. Who the hell do you think you are? I would give you money to have you say that in my face. Amanda says, LOL, damn Debbie. Oh, and by the way, take a look at the video count. Take a look at the subscriber count. No one here but you wants me to be quiet. So maybe the asshole is you. You ever thought about that? Read the room, dude. Aaron says, every day, Debbie, every day. James says, cussing me out like that, shame on you. She says shit, but I expect you to be able to spell a little better than that, being a third grader and all. James, there is no shame on me. You're being an idiot. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you think. I don't care what you're going to do about it. If you don't like it, turn your ass around and go out the same way you came in. Otherwise, sit down and be quiet and learn something. I'm here for you, buddy. I'll teach you a thing or two if you'll listen, but you can't hear when your mouth is opened. Maybe you need to be shook up a little bit. Maybe you need to have your ass whipped. You ever thought about that, being a young man? Maybe you don't have all the answers. Amy says, you did it too, Aaron. Just say yes or no. And Amanda says,
I think you need to grow up, James.
Don't say just read.
I had to figure out where I was.
Yeah, but we don't need to know that. This is a training course, by the way. So if you hear me getting on to Amanda, just know that it's to teach her how to do the job she's learning to do now. It's not meanness for the sake of meanness. Kevin says, I've always liked chock full of nuts. Is that a coffee brand? I've heard of that before, but I can't place what it is. I think cereal immediately. Aaron says, hey, James, watch this. Aaron says, are you looking, James? Amy says, James, where's your show at? Right. Let us go watch your show for a minute. And it's all right, Aaron. Let him talk for a minute. He hadn't said anything that'll get him kicked out yet. Maybe he'll come around. We'll see. Ease up on the throttle just a little bit. Amy says, I'm timing the trolls out for 10 minutes. After that, time increases. Right, but again, let's give them a chance. They're going to troll. Give them the first one for free because they're going to do that. That's what they came here to do. Give them an opportunity to hear what's happening and see if they want to change their ways. Give them a shot. If they won't take it, that's on them. But always err on the side of hoping that they'll come around. Aaron says, I'll support that. Right on. Amy says, Trump makes fun of everyone. He's king of the trolls, and I love it. Right on. I agree. And it's okay to make fun of people if you're making fun of everybody uniformly. It's not okay to single somebody out, which he does not do. Lady B's in the house. Hello, darling. I was thinking about you this week. How are you? Lady B says, hey, everyone, don't forget how much I love you all. From Alabama. Roll Tide. Amy says, hi, Lady B. And Amanda says,
yes, Amy. If they come back with the nonsense, then time them out for the night or time them out longer.
Kevin says, hello, Lady B.
Hi, lady.
Aaron says, I agree, unless it's like racist stuff or really bad. I hear you. I have mixed feelings about that because I'm a little bit pro-racist talk. And the reason I'm that way is because I believe that, what's the word I'm looking for? Exposure is the best medicine. I think that if you make a thing untouchable, then it has power that you gave it. If you make it stupid, which is what racism is, it has no power. That's what I believe. Obviously, I don't have a dog in that particular fight, or I do, but it doesn't matter. But I'll leave that to your discretion. If you can handle it, let them say it. If you can't, boot them out. Or better yet, what would be even better is out-racist them. I would support that. If you came back with something worse and at them, let them know how it feels. I'm down with that. However you want to handle that, it's your business. I support you in it. Hydra is a battle bot, says Amy. Is it? Here I thought it was the bad guy in Captain America, who goes by the moniker Hydra, and they say, Hail Hydra. But I don't know anything about battle bots, so I'm with you. Amy says, Aaron, I booted one already. That was racist. And Debbie says, I have posted a video in the past of Trump using the same hand gestures when describing those that are confused and walking back comments that they made. Yes. And that's kind of like the racist thing that we were talking about earlier. If you're going to judge somebody like the left likes to judge Trump, be consistent, you know. If this is his typical, if this is his typical behavior, then you can't very well say that he's making fun of a guy with a disability. And they don't do that. They don't do any due diligence. They just pick anything they can find and then try to label him with it. That's not the right way to do that. If you're going to be in journalism, you got to be non-biased and you got to take everything as it comes. And they don't do that. You're absolutely right in that, Debbie. Aaron says, I missed it, Amy. Dang. And Lady B says, hey, Amy, hug, sweetheart. Patty says, when Miss Amanda told you earlier not to do that, it looked like Trump doing his imitation, and I'm laughing at this, y'all. Ha. Oh, when she told me not to do that? I see what you're saying. No, that ain't what I meant by that gesture. That was my vocal cords slapping together. But I understand why it looks that way. And it is funny. Lady B says, hey, Kevin, hugs and smiley faces. Amanda says, LOL, Patty.
Yeah. You forget I'm also paying attention to the bottom of the chat, too, so.
I'm with you. Lady B says, hey, Amanda, and hey, Aaron. Amy says, I made mashed potato bowls for dinner. Popcorn chicken, mashed potatoes, gravy, and beans. That sounds delicious, Amy. We had Subway. I had the elite chicken sandwich, because I'm that kind of guy. And she had a Philly cheesesteak. And we got a meatball sub that we're going to eat later. We're going to split that one. Aaron says, good to see you, Jake and Lady B. Nice to see you too, Aaron. How you doing today, buddy? Rich S is here. He says, well, I came in as a troll and saved from the dark side. So here's hope for everyone. Right, Rich. And I'm with you, buddy. And that's what we're trying to do, believe it or not. Some of them can't be saved. Some of them just don't know the difference between trolling and having a legitimate conversation. They really think that's all there is to life. And those people, I can't save them. If, however, I can get one of them to come back over to this side of thinking for a minute, we might actually be able to make friends. And we might actually have good conversations that ensue. So hopefully that'll happen. And that's not to say they won't go on and troll other people, just as long as they come here with the intent of thinking and talking. You can only do what you can do. Aaron says, and you let me lick your fingers, LOL. Wow. Amy says, and cheese. Nice. That sounds like a good dinner. Kevin says, hello, Rich. And Amy says, smiley face. And Amanda says,
I don't know where I'm at.
That's 8:51. Hi, Rich. And Rich says, hello, friends and foes. Lady B says, hey, Rich. Wave your hand. Amy says, hello, Rich. And Aaron says, Rich, thank you. And then my chat jumped. Hang on.
Aaron says, Rich, thank you for being here.
There you go. And Rich says, it's an honor to be here. Aaron says, yes, sir. And an honor to have you always. That's nice. I'm glad you guys are building a good camaraderie together because this thing has potential to be big. We just have to get it there, slowly but surely. Lady B says, anybody having allergy problems? Me. Wow, what you got in mind? Ugh. Cough and meds for $75. Crazy. Wow. Yeah, I don't know what to do about it. Amy says, our friend Ladina is not feeling well. Well, be sure and tell her that we're praying for her and that we love her, Amy. And if you talk to her, tell her that I apologize if the subject matter was touchy last night. I understand why, but you can't shy away from it. Reality is reality, and somebody brought it up, so we talked about it. Not all conversations are going to be your thing. Might be somebody else's thing. You just have to wait till your time comes around. But tell her we love her and we're thinking about her. Rich says, Jake, go back to where you came from. Where did you came from anyway? Mars, apparently, Rich. I'm a Georgia boy, born and bred. I grew up in Florida, and then I traveled for a long time. And so I'm from everywhere, really. Aaron says, hugs, Ladina. And I've been back to where I came from, Rich. There's nothing there for me. Patty says, heck yeah, Jake, come over here and make me. Yeah, that'd be a bad day for that guy. Lady B says, sounds good, Amy, yummy. And Aaron says, LOL, I'm with Patty. Right? Step right on up here and let yourself be seen there, buddy. Don't just say things from anonymity's point. Which is easy to do. It's easy to run your mouth when you're hiding behind a computer screen. Come on out here and say it in my face.
Nice. Stream Elements took that one out for us.
Oh, I see that. They must have said a dirty word.
They just kept repeating a bunch of things, same thing over and over and over.
I've got stream elements to delete repetitive things where they keep doing the same thing, and also really bad cuss words. Other than that, it pretty much lets whatever go through. Amy says, Lady B, it was, and so simple. It was good and very simple to make. Now, Gas de Coco says, stop smoking. We need you alive, my friend. Well, thank you, but I ain't no quitter. Nalgas, my mama didn't raise no quitter, so that's not going to happen. But I appreciate your concern, and I'm going to be here as long as I can be. I promise you that. Amanda says,
I'm young and need a spanking.
I'll spank you later. It's me's back. What's up, it's me? I watched a TV show, Discovering Bigfoot. It's funny. I thought of this show. Thank you, it's me. How are you? And did you learn anything from that show? Did they discover, in fact, Bigfoot? Did they find him? Do they have, where you can go down and take pictures with him and get his autograph and that sort of thing now? Or did they leave on a nebulous note? Such as, well, we really still don't know anything. We just think we know. Seems to be the way it goes, doesn't it? I'm from an old school of science where you find something and then definitively prove it or get rid of it because it's nonsense. Amanda says, hi, it's me. And Amy says, stop complaining. Now, Gus, start with hello. There's an idea. Hello. Nice to see you. Amy says, hi, it's me. And Kevin says, hello, it's me. Amy says, LOL, it's me. Debbie says, sure, Jake. You just want Amanda mad so you can have angry makeup sex after the show. Not a bad idea, Debbie. Not a bad idea. Lady B says, 2 more major plants in Alabama will lose all the jobs as of September. They all found put in July. 2 different major factories. Well, that's terrible. What kind of plants are we talking about, Lady B? Because it seems to me like the job market's opening up rather than closing down, but I'd like to know why they're closing. Are they moving? Are they coming in or out of the country? Have they been following all the right laws, or what's happening with those plants? Aaron says, I was behaving. Right on. Rich says, it's me. Related to what it is. I don't think so. It's a very similar name, though, for sure. It's me says, howdy, ladies. And Lady B says, Ladina, feel better, sweetheart. Amen. Nalga says, wavy hands. Amy says, I saw Dennis on Caucasian Sasquatch show the other day, and I said hi. I think he's mad at me. I think he's mad at himself. We seem to have issues, me and that guy. He gets mad. He'll bring a subject up and then get mad that I respond to it. And like, have you met me? Do you not know where I stand on these things? Amy says, I don't like that show. It's ridiculous. Waxing each other. I left. Yeah, I will remain silent about my feelings on that subject, which is more than I get in return. Put it that way. Aaron says, you're right on that subject, Jake. Debate and win. That's usually how it goes. Debbie says, Archie Bunker was a racist, and so was George Jefferson, and they were neighbors and friends. That is how we were raised. I agree with that. And I think the reason for that show and the reason it was so successful is because that's the way most people are. There's nothing wrong with being a tribalist. That's how people are built. They're built to conform to their little group of people. That's how you survive in a world. But they want to turn that into something else. And when hatred is involved, that's a bad thing. It's okay to prefer what you are to other things. It is not okay to hate other things because they are not what you are. It's a slight difference, but it is a difference. Aaron says, I watched the BattleBots, Amy. It was cool. Right on. I think I know what you're talking about. It's like a arena, and people build little robots, and they put them against each other to fight. I think I've seen something like that before. Spilling my coffee everywhere. That's not good. Amanda says, he, being Caucasian Sasquatch, is disgusting and disrespectful to women, two-faced, and I refuse to watch any of his shows. Lady B says, Amy, in this heat, simplicity is key in the kitchen. Right on. I understand that totally. You don't want to be in there in the morning. You have to be. Amy says, please tap that like button, everybody. Hit that like button and make it good. Whipmaster says, Mike's whooping on Mr. Jake tonight. LOL. Hello, Whipmaster. Mike's whooping on Mr. Jake? I don't think so. Aaron says, who is Amanda? Oh, Caucasian Sasquatch. Patty says, I loved all of those shows and still do, Debbie. Amy says, hi, Whip. And Flukes, JNR Bruh says, you're jumping through so many hoops to defend a man who wouldn't piss on you if you were on fire. Who are you talking about? Me defending. I'm not jumping through any hoops, by the way. What exactly are you referring to, Flukes? And you don't know me from Adam's house, cat. That's awful presumptuous of you to say. If it's who I think you're talking about, I'll call him and ask him what he thinks about that. Amanda says, the guy Amy was talking about, Caucasian Sasquatch. That's who she's referring to. All right, I'll explain it to you. It's been a while now. And I kept my mouth shut for long enough, so I'll just say it. How about that? I was asked, the Caucasian Sasquatch is my cousin, in case you didn't know that. And we grew up together. And we started podcasts pretty much at the same time. I started mine, and then he took from me and learned how to do his. And I spent many nights, 6 hours at the time, teaching him how to do all of this. Run the software, what to get it, how to make it work, how to do a show, how to be funny, all of that stuff. And then in the process of all of that, he asked me if I would do a segment on one show that he was doing, which was called Blast Radius. And so I did. I put together a show called Hyperbole, which was a 30-minute short, up to 30 minutes, of me doing exactly what he asked me to do, which was give my take on why the world is falling apart. And he told me to be creative and do whatever I wanted to do, so I did. And that's how the Hyperbole was born. I did 6 episodes, and they could not stand it because they're not against the narrative that I am against. And so they pulled the plug. And that was their prerogative. I didn't say anything about that. It's fine. I even thanked them for the opportunity. And I told him that I knew when I started this show that they couldn't handle the truth. And I'm surprised that it lasted as long as it did. And that was fine. That was the end of it. But then he went on his show and started talking about me. And I'm sure you could go back and find this episode if you wanted to look for it. He called me a right-wing Christian flat earth fundamentalist, which is not true in any sense of the words. And then he proceeded to tell his audience that I was hard-headed and he could not talk to me because I thought I knew everything. And several other stuff that he said. Why would he do that? I don't know. Because I've never said a cross word about him, ever. Not once. Not even now. See, the thing is, a lot of people that watch my show watch his show. And he knew that. So what he did was effectively turn a bunch of people against me by saying some random things that were not true or true in his mind. It's not my fault if you don't have any kind of education and you can't really defend your point. If you go back and watch, every point I made was accurate and factual. And they couldn't take it. So that's the story. And when he started talking about me behind my back without inviting me there to defend myself, that's when I stopped having anything to do with his show. That's why you don't see me on over there anymore. And I haven't said one bad thing about him all this time. So you can go back and look. I have not been I'm in his mouth way more than he's in mine. Put it that way. But for some reason, he keeps popping up. And so now you know. Whipmaster says, Miss Amy, wave your hands. Flukes says, you're not better than libtards. Did I say I was? Flukes, are you putting words in my mouth? Are you fighting an argument that I'm not involved in? Because it sounds like it. Amy says, hi, Flukes. You're speculating. He's doing something. Aaron says, hi, Flukes. And Fluke says, hi, Amy. I'm actively listening to what's being said. Apparently you're not, because I didn't say any of the things that you've mentioned. Amanda says, hi, Whip. Kevin says, hello, Whipmaster. Aaron says, Flukes, feel free to debate your input respectfully. Feel free to debate you input respectfully. Lady B says, nice to meet you, Flukes. Kevin says, hello, Flukes. Amy says, actively listening with confirmation bias, you mean? Right. Fluke says, all politicians are the same, more or less. Trump just doesn't hide how evil he is. Well, how do you know that Trump is evil? I haven't seen him do anything evil, have you? If so, what is that? Confirmation bias, by the way, is when you think you know a thing and then back it up with the thing you think you know, and you're wrong all the way around. That's what confirmation bias is. So what exactly is it that I said about Trump that you disagree with? And what about Trump do you consider to be evil? And Debbie says, so Amanda is getting 6 inches later. Nice. Well, unless I feel generous and give her the whole thing, yeah. Sometimes I keep 6 for myself. Aaron says, we're glad to have you, Flukes. Right on. Whipmaster says, Miss Amanda, keeping Mr. Jake straight over there. Yes, always. Hang on, my chat jumped.
902.
902. That's way up there. Amy says, Flukes, you made a claim that he wouldn't piss on him if he was on fire, and you don't know that. Correct. You don't know that. You don't know me at all. You don't know what my relationship is with Donald Trump. You don't know if I know him or not. You're making an assumption that you're wrong about. Fluke says, Trump was a New York born with a silver spoon in his ass. He doesn't give a damn about any of us. Well, you don't know that. I would say that running as president and not taking a paycheck to do that job shows that he cares about the American people. Ain't nobody on the Democrat side done that, by the way. And second of all, why do you care whether he has money or not? Is that a reflection against you that he has money? It's not. Amanda says, LOL, Debbie, I better get more than 6 inches. Amy says, potential to get big. Whipmaster says, dang, shaking my head. Pressure, right? Aaron says, LOL, when you show that happens, Amy. When you show that happens, Amy. Luke says he's stealing millions of tax dollars for his gold trips and plane rides, but firing wild card firefighters and medical professionals is going to save the country somehow. Well, none of that's true, Flukes. First of all, Trump doesn't need to steal millions. You remember 5 seconds ago when you said he was born with a silver spoon in his ass, implying that he had lots and lots of money and don't care about us? How can he both not care about us and then steal from us? Do you hear what you're saying? Do you understand that that's incorrect thinking? Also, he owns a plane, and he's provided one in Air Force One that the government pays for. Tax-funded plane. All presidents have that. All of them. What are you talking about? And what wild card firefighters and medical professionals are you referring to that he fired? I don't think you know what you're talking about. And Lady B says, Whipmaster, wave your hand. Whipmaster says, reckon the motion in the ocean don't matter anymore. Not if you're hung like a mule, Whipmaster. It don't matter, because either way you turn, that motion is going to provide pleasure. And it's ribbed for her pleasure. What are we talking about? John H. What's up, buddy? He says, evening, everyone. So's lady ear exploded. I don't know what that means.
Sorry, late ear exploded.
Oh, your ear exploded. How did your ear explode? Jesus Christ, man. Are you okay? Do you have shrapnel damage? What happened? Why did you have a bomb in your ear? I have so many questions. Nice to see you, John. Amy says, hi, Nugget. And Kevin says, hello, John. And Debbie says, Flukes, does it hurt to be so delusional? Lady B says, good night, John. I don't think he's leaving. I think he's showing up. Amanda says, hi, Nugget. And Polly, you can't repeat yourself like that. That's a no-no. You're welcome to stay and talk, but you cannot bombard the chat with nonsense. That doesn't help anybody, especially the people reading the chat. It also does not help prove your point in any way, shape, or form. So saying Trump over and over again with 1,000 American flags, that ain't helping or proving that you're patriotic. But we're with you on that. Amy says, LOL, Debbie. Aaron says, oh, dang. Amy says, Stream Elements did that. Because they repeated themselves like 5 lines. Lady B says, oops. Re-react. Hey, John. Debbie says, 8-Ball, does Flukes have Trump derangement syndrome? 8-Ball says, for sure. Amy says, oh, I see. He repeated the president's name in all caps. That's why Stream Elements did that. Yes. Aaron says, oh, snap. And Amy says, ha, 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 8-Ball. Aaron says, that's what I was saying. Oh, snap too, Amy. Lady B says, Federal Mogul and Machinist Company. Okay. I don't know anything about those companies. I'm sorry they're losing their jobs. Bryce Olson, welcome to the show. What is Trump doing to regulate microplastics and forever chemicals in our drinking water? Well, I don't know exactly. That doesn't seem to be high on the list of things to do for whatever reason. There seems to be many other things going on, but it is a valid point. And hopefully the people that are figuring out ways to turn that microplastic stuff into fuel will get a fair ride. I did hear something not too long ago about a guy who just vanished who had figured out a way to turn microplastics into fuel. And big oil does not like that idea at all. So there's more going on than the president when it comes to microplastics. And but that is a good question, and I hope somebody's working on it, Bryce. Fab Daddy, what's up? Fab Daddy said hi. Nice to see you, Fab. Amy says, hi, Bryce, welcome. Ask RFK Jr. That's his area. That's a good idea. And I'm sure he's got something going in that area, but I don't know what. I haven't heard yet. Amanda says, hi, Fab. And Amy says, hi, Fab Daddy. And Bryce says, I thought you guys would be informed. I already know the answer. Then why did you ask the question, Bryce? Why are you asking questions you already know the answer to? Why don't you instead inform the people instead of keeping it to yourself? Sounds to me like you're trying to start drama rather than have a conversation. Is that the way you were taught to have a conversation, by the way? Do you often go into rooms where you know the answers and then you ask questions and then pretend to be dumb? How about that? And also, it's awful weird that you would take a random thing like microplastics and assume everybody knows what you know and then judge them based on what you know as to what they know. That sounds to me like you live in a bubble and don't have any idea how to think your way out of it. Maybe try again. Aaron says, fabulous daddy. And Kevin says, hello, Fab Daddy. Patty says, who was doing anything about microplastics before President Trump? Good question. I thought you were informed. Bryce. Aaron says, what's the answer, Bryce? Amy says, I saved you a toilet paper roll, Fab. Fab Daddy says, happy Saturday. I just got back from the lake. I had enough sun for August already. Right on. How was it? Did you enjoy yourself? Amy says, I hope you wore sunscreen, Fab. Be getting skin cancers and such. Aaron says, do you fish, Fab? Aaron's quite the fisherman. Lady B says, Bryce, I purchased the purr filter you put on your kitchen faucet for drinking water with 3 extra filters, stopping a lot of bottled water. Just FYI. Amen. Who regulated it before? Is that a serious question, asked Bryce? Well, yeah. Most people ask questions they don't already know the answer to, Bryce. That's how conversations work. So what's the answer? Give a serious answer for a serious question. Or pat your ass to somebody else who has less of an intellect that you can actually dominate the conversation. You can't do it here. Fab Daddy says, I'm overdosed on vitamin D. Are you familiar with the EPA? You mean that building that's largely empty over there in Washington, D.C. that puts up a bunch of red tape and doesn't actually do anything? Yeah, I'm familiar with the EPA. What exactly were they doing? Do you know? Because I don't think you do. Rich S says, Amanda Banhammer, did you guys use any coupon codes for Subway? There are some super good ones around. We did not. That's a good idea, though, because it was $40 for 3 sandwiches. Patty says, real serious question. Yes, Bryce. We are familiar with how Trump is dismantling the largely empty EPA that actually doesn't actually do anything but cause trouble for people that are trying to do building and construction of all sorts. They get in the way a lot more than they help. So, yeah, we're familiar with him dismantling it. And no, they are not keeping our air and water clean. I promise you that when the EPA has been dismantled, nothing will change in the way of clean water and air. That is something some Democrats told you and you bought it hook, line, and sinker, but you don't have any evidence to back any of it up. You're just running your mouth while you're being strung along with the narrative. That makes you in a cult. Aaron says, why are we talking about bottled water out of all the problems? That was my thought, Aaron. There seems to be way more things going on than the EPA's stance on microplastics, but apparently that's important to Bryce. And that's the only thing he has to argue with. So he or she, I don't know who it is using that as a reason to start an argument. I've found that most people in that situation can't see their way out of a paper bag, let alone what's happening right in front of their face. All they can see is what they know, what little bit they know. And thus, is the problem with communication. Remember what I've said a million times. It does not matter how smart you are. The only thing that matters is how smart the person you're talking to is, because anything you say that goes over their head, goes over their head. They don't get it. They don't understand. You can only talk to them on their level. That's why it pays to surround yourself with people smarter than you. Amanda says, no, Rich, it was a spur of the moment thing. Going to Subway. We decided to go to Subway while we were going to Subway. Bryce says, who said anything about bottled water? Lady B did. Are you not paying attention? Are you only listening to your self-talk? Sounds to me like you are not trying to have a conversation with the rest of us. You're trying to pat yourself on the back with how much you know in our presence. So pay attention to the conversation, Bryce. Aaron says, you did. Amy says, are you familiar with starting comments with something other than are you familiar with? Bryson, you're not that important. Why would anybody waste any time sending you a screenshot? Who do you think you are? You think you just own the place because you're here? You're not. You don't. But if you're cool with microplastics and forever chemicals in your balls, that's fine with me. All right, Bryson. What is forever chemical and how does it get in your balls? Go ahead, enlighten us, because I don't think you know. I think you're just using talking points that you know very little about. What chemical is a forever chemical? Patty says dismantling. Wave your hands. You just wait till I get finished with him. Wait till you see where this ends. When he finds out where he ends and I begin, wait till you see that. Rich says, K, well, don't forget it next time. You should never be paying more than $7 for a footlong sub. Well, I paid way more than $7, so that would be nice. Aaron says, you said drinking water and microplastics, which involves bottled water. Like I said, you don't know what you're talking about. Bryson says, what's the question, Patty? Patty, ask you a question. Who was working on microplastics before Trump? Who was solving the problem before the guy you're currently complaining about not doing enough? What were they doing? Lady B says, Amy, why don't I see the folks you and Jake are mentioning? You might want to check live chat up at the top. Make sure you're on live chat, not all chat or top chat. Make sure it's on live chat. Amanda says, awesome. Thanks, Rich. I'll remember next time. Bryson says, do you only drink from plastic bottles, Aaron? That's not the question. Quit deflecting and answer the question you were asked. Yes, you did, Bryce. You talked about microplastics. Where do you think microplastics come from? Amy says, I drink from a garden hose. Me too. And this cup, this dirty, rotten cup right here. I can't afford my own cup. Charlie Craig says, aliens. Right on, Charlie. Aliens. Bryson says, cool. Enjoy your forever chemicals while dodging vaccines. Well, now you're making assumptions about how we handle vaccines, which has nothing to do with microplastics. You are a left-wing libtard. So how about you just take a long walk off a short pier and you worry about you? How about that? Nobody cares what you're threatening over there. You are a peon. Go be a peon in somebody else's corner. Charlie Craig says, sea monkeys. Bryce says, very smart. I am very smart. And if you want to find out how smart, keep pushing my buttons. Aaron says, what is your point? What is your point that you're making? What I'm asking, I'm curious to know what's going on with water. Right, you brought it up, so what are you talking about? Charlie Craig, are you just having fun over there throwing out random words? Reptilians and sea monkeys and aliens? Bigfoot, maybe? Amanda says,
I have a couple of the episodes about Jake. Oh, I have a copy of the episode about Jake.
referring to what?
The Caucasian Sasquatch.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's water under the bridge. They can think that if they want. I am not trying to defend myself. If they think that, they can think that. If you have not listened to anything I've said thus far, if you actually think that I think I know everything and that I'm largely incorrect, why are you listening to me? Makes sense to me. I don't think a lot of people think that, though. I think he thinks that, which is why he's not here.
It just aggravates me that he still comes and asks you for favors and pops in like nothing ever happened.
Well, that's because I'm needed. And I'm not entirely sure he knows that I know what he said about me. But I do know because I heard him say it. But he has never asked, not even once, why I withdrew from his show. So, maybe he does know. Who knows? Amy says, manatees. Your turn, Charlie. Right on. Bryce says, Trump is rolling back decades worth of environmental and health protections, all for the glory of big business. Well, what do you think that's going to do, Bryce? Suppose you're right. Suppose he is rolling back decades of environmental and health protections, which doesn't seem to be working a whole lot. I mean, did you see the smog that was lifted from LA the 3 days that COVID caused everybody to stay inside? In 3 days, decades of fog lifted, and they've had clear skies ever since. There was pure smog over LA up until that point. EPA didn't do a whole lot about that, did they? These microplastics that you're talking about being in the water, the EPA didn't fix that, did they? Do you think anything Trump's going to do is going to change the amount of microplastics that are in the water? You think it's all of a sudden just going to overflow and kill everybody immediately if he changes something in the EPA? What exactly is your complaint here other than Trump bad, Democrats good? Because you're wrong on that point. Also, big business. Think about the words. Big business. Big business makes lots of money. Lots of money make good country. You see how that works? Use your brain, Bryce, for something other than a platform for your hat. Fab Daddy says, it's been 2 weeks since you said let's wait about the Epstein stuff, and it seems like the victor will be the PDF Ghislaine. Well, I said wait for 2 weeks to see what the truth would be, and in 2 weeks, some things have come out, haven't they? Things that you didn't know back then. Likely that if this comes out, the whole house of cards will fall. That's why everybody, including Trump and the people who are ardently about getting the information out, like Bongino and Cash Patel, that's why they've all backpedaled and now are trying to keep it a secret. Because they got to see the real thing, the thing that nobody else knows about, the thing that this whole shebang is held up by those evil people. And it's literally the lesser of two evils. So now you know. Now you know that no side of the government is safe. That both sides are going to screw you if they can. And now you know that. Before you didn't know that. Before you had a team. Now you're beginning to understand that you don't have a team. You're just being a useful idiot for one or the other. Amy says, squirrel. And Bryce said, I said EPA, not FDA. Well, I didn't say FDA. What did you say? Who said FDA? I didn't read that in the chat even once. Those would be a different organization. Charlie says, mole people, over to you, Amy. Bryce says, do you think oil companies care about you? No, I don't. Why would I think that? They're oil companies. Why would they care about me? Why would they care about you? Why would you want them to? They're oil companies. The only thing they should care about is oil. What are you saying? Do you think that companies around the world just cater to you? That they just have you on a blackboard in their little office and they think whatever decisions we make, we got to make sure that it's okay with that guy? I think you're being a little bit naive. Kevin says, Bryce, do you think EPA cares about the people in this country? Amy says, space lasers. Bryce, don't repeat yourself. I heard you the first time. Fab Daddy says, oil companies do care about people, but they care about oil. Are you actually insane? Bryce asks. Yes. Charlie says, AstroTurf. Not here, mister. Kevin says, Bryce, those companies are not supported by my tax dollars. That's a thing Bryce doesn't know very much about, Kevin. I need you to think about what you just said. I think about what I say plenty, Bryce. I think you need to think about it.
Bryce needs to dial it back a little bit before he gets booted.
Bryce? The only reason I don't live in a wasteland is because the regulations exist. Well, you're incorrect about that. You are incorrect. You do realize that those regulations don't exist in all the other countries that are currently surviving just fine, right? Fab Daddy says they care what we spend our labor value on them. Yep, well, they would care that, yes. Aaron says, debate Bryce, but no insults. He can't. He can't. He doesn't have any information to back up his theory. And the only thing he has is to insult me because he doesn't know how to carry on a conversation with an adult. So, let him do his thing. Kevin says, Bryce, tell the people in Michigan, right? Fab Daddy says, Bryce, do you hug trees? Aaron says, Flint, Michigan, to be exact. Right on. Amy says, define evil, Bryce. And Kevin says, Aaron, exactly. Aaron says, I used to live there in Flint, Michigan. How was the water? Patty says, Flint. Bryce, you're tiring, son. Hang on.
9:18.
Bryce says, so you're cool with spending thousands of dollars on patrol products, but Lord forbid you spend pennies protecting the air your children breathe. Well, first of all, you don't know that I have any children, so why would you be making that assumption? Second of all, I don't spend any money on any of that stuff. I have tax dollars that my government uses to handle those things. Whether they do or not is out of my hands. Third of all, I'm not cool with any of it. I would prefer not to use petroleum products. Petroleum, not petrol, petroleum, which is a different substance. Petrol is a nickname. Petroleum is the substance it came from. And Lord is all capital letters, by the way. If you're going to invoke his name, do it correctly. And also, who has been protecting the air that my children breathe? Who? Show me one thing that has ever been done to protect the air my children breathe. Anywhere in the world. Do we have carbon dioxide scrubbers online and working? Do we have sorry, I heard something moving over there. I was wrong. Do we have facilities that pump out good oxygen into buildings, positive oxygen in buildings? No. Do we have anything going on that actually protects the air that we breathe? No. So what are you talking about exactly? And Kevin says, Bryce, my kids are breathing just fine. Right. Amy says, Petrol, where are you from, Bryce? Not America, clearly. Petrol is a slang used by British people. John can attest to that. Bryce says, the party of law and order really doesn't seem to care about enforcing laws and would love to live without order. I don't think you know that. Who are you talking about it specifically? Because they're doing the same thing that the last group of people did as far as laws go. You might be a little taken aback by that, but go look at the policies. They're the same policies. Left wing, right wing, same bird. In fact, the only place that any of that stuff you're talking about takes place in reality is on the news. It's not reality. Aaron says, good debate, Bryce. Keep it going. And Bryce says, Amy, are you aware toxic chemicals are visible to the naked eye? Bryce, are you aware that you don't have a clue what you're talking about? Not one clue. You are literally just repeating things you heard somebody else say. Don't talk down to people when you don't know what you're talking about. It makes you look like an idiot. And by the way, everyone in the room knows that. You're the only one that thinks you know what you're talking about. Mao Ishan says, go figure. Mao, what do you mean? Go figure what? And welcome to the show. Lady B says, sorry, Bryce. I will stay quietly in my corner. Fab Daddy says, Bryce, the fires in California the last decade created more air pollution than the cars driving for its history. Yeah, he doesn't know that. Amy says, without petroleum products, you wouldn't have your lube. Nice. Amanda says, free speech in here, Lady B. Say what you like. Yeah, Lady B, if you have an opinion, please do share it. Bryce says, Trump doesn't take a paycheck because he gets infinite donations. That's not true. You do realize that Trump is the only president that did not have a super PAC. Right? Do you know what a super PAC is? I don't think you do. Trump used his own money to run for president. He did not use donations. He did get some of this last time, but he was also fighting a bunch of lawsuits that were pushed against him by the Democrats when they weaponized the DOJ. But the first two presidential candidates that he ran, or presidential runs that he made, he paid for out of his pocket. But you wouldn't know that because you hadn't spent a second looking into the guy you hate because you have Trump derangement syndrome. If you would stop hating and look at reality and give both sides equal time in your brain, you would quickly discover that things are not what you've been told. Bryce says, Fab Daddy, are you worried about wildfires? Well, he lives in California, so I would expect yes. He lives in a state where the governor doesn't do anything to avoid those wildfires and, in fact, promotes them to happen with his policies and the EPA. So, yeah, I would imagine he's worried about fires. Mao says, when in doubt, sound it out. Who are you talking to, Mao? Kevin says, Bryce, every politician in America gets donations. Yep. Fab Daddy says, yep, I live around trees and mountains. So, yeah, wildfires is a problem. Viking, that would be my business, not yours. Amy says, oh, no, my eyes are naked. Does that mean I'm flashing everyone when I blink? Yeah. Mao says, sounding out the name. Well, I did sound it out. It says Mao, M-O-U, Mao. Bryce says, Amy, what are you saying? Probably anything to avoid your nonsense. Amy says, tag team. Amanda says, tag team. Fab Daddy says, can we talk about the 200 million ballroom? That shit's crazy. What are you talking about, Fab Daddy? What ballroom? This is something I haven't heard about. So fill us in. Let us know what's up. Amy says, Bryce, you said naked eyes. Blink, blink, I flash you. Aaron says, your eyes don't have nipples, Amy. The lids are like the bra. LOL. Bryce says, I love how MAGA thinks if someone doesn't blindly worship a fat orange man, that means that they worship the other demons. Try not being a sheep. Well, I'm not a sheep. I'm a shepherd. That goes to show you right there that you don't know who you're talking about. Second of all, I don't worship anybody except God. Third of all, do you even know what MAGA means? And nobody worships Trump, by the way. Clark Kent, I know who you really are. Don't try to fool me, buddy. Welcome to the show. Are you good enough for heaven? Ever lusted or hated anyone before? Ever lived or stolen before? Well, Clark Kent, have you? Sounds to me like you're being a little judgy over there. Thou shalt not judge lest you be judged yourself. Remember that? But welcome to the show. Bryce says $200 million ballroom, but the elderly and disabled can't have health care. Again, I don't know what you're talking about. You have to be more specific than that. And the elderly and disabled do have health care. Do you think they don't? Do you think that Trump put end to Medicare and Medicaid and to Obamacare for that matter? I don't think you know what you're talking about there, Bryce.
I know a little bit about it.
Well, fill us in.
Trump is building a 600-seat ballroom at the White House to house that large of a crowd for their meetings and dinners. That way they don't have to rent an off-site facility like they have been doing.
And how much does that cost?
About $200 million when he's done with it.
No, how much does it cost to rent the facilities?
They haven't gone into detail about that, but it's going to save quite a bit of money by the time he's done. Yeah. And it's supposed to be done before he's out of office.
And by the way, our deficit is in the trillions. $200 million is not a lot of money when it comes to those people. Okay, so the gist is Trump is building an annex onto the White House, a ballroom, so that they can host things there instead of renting facilities elsewhere.
Correct.
That makes sense. They have a bowling alley there. Why wouldn't they have a ballroom?
They have one in now. It just only seats like 150 people.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't care about that. That doesn't bother me at all. Does it bother you, Bryce? Amy says Trump is not perfect and you're making huge assumptions. You know what they say when you assume something. ASSUME. You make an ass out of you and me when you make assumptions. And Aaron says, Bible study's not tonight, Clark Kent. If you want that, come tomorrow night. Clark says, we broke God's laws, but Jesus paid our fine. Transfer the trust from yourself to the Savior. Well, Clark, that's a good message. Come tomorrow night where I give that exact message every week. You're preaching to the choir, buddy. Go cast your pearls amongst the people that need it. Not here. Fab Daddy says, President Van Buren was an aristocrat, and the public hated Trump. Is starting to be Van Buren again. What did Van Buren do? I don't know anything about President Van Buren. He's an aristocrat that the public hated, period. Trump is starting to be Van Buren again. Yeah, well, why did they hate Van Buren? Trump embodies every sin to the max, says Bryce. Well, who made you God? And what sin are you referring to? Can you give me one example of a sin that Trump embodies to the max? Do you know what the sins are? Clark Kent says Trump fits every characteristic of the Bible prophecies about the Antichrist. Well, you're incorrect, sir. The first characteristic is that the Antichrist comes from the East, and they were in the East when they said that, which means further east. What's east of the East? That would be China or Asia Minor. Trump is not from Asia Minor or China, so he can't be the Antichrist. Also, there's no mortal head wound. His little shot to the ear was nowhere near mortal. So that's just a coincidence. Also, Trump is American, and American leaders are not mentioned in the Bible. So you're incorrect all the way around on your assessment there. You know who does fit all of the check boxes? The Pope. Minus the being born from the Middle East, but they get a new Pope every so often. So when the Pope comes that is from the Middle East, he will then tick all of the boxes. But you wouldn't know that because you're making assumptions based on something you've heard, not any evidence that you discovered by studying. And John H. says, cyst the size of a golf ball popped and won't go into details. That's horrible, John. I'm glad it popped outside and not inside, because if it did, you'd have blood clot problems. Thank God that it popped. Now you can get the healing. Maybe that'll get rid of it. I hope you're doing okay, buddy. Amy says, Clark, only one way to heaven, and that's in John 3:16. You're welcome to join us for Bible study tomorrow. John 3:16 is, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should have everlasting life and not perish. That's the only way to get to heaven. Christ said, I'm the truth, the life, and the way. To where? To heaven. Fab Daddy says, Bryce, is there anything you think Trump has done that's good or beneficial? That's a good question, Bryce. Bryce says, everyone who uses the term TDS are the same people spending all day talking about Trump and flying MAGA flags everywhere, talking about projecting. Well, I used the term TDS in this conversation, Bryce. I don't have a MAGA flag at all, nor do I spend all day talking about Trump, nor do I care to. So you're wrong. Maybe your generalization needs some generalizing. Maybe you need to reel back your own hatred and look at yourself. And Amy says, Trump derangement syndrome is rampant tonight. Yes, it is. Fab Daddy says, by the way, Bryce, I don't like Trump. I bet you didn't see that coming, Bryce. There's more than one opinion in this chat. But truth is truth, and you're not looking at it. Amanda says, oh no, Nugget. At least it open and draining now. Prayers, man. Right on. At least you got some of the pressure off of that thing. I've had a cyst before, and they suck. Bryce says, the only thing he has done is push moderates to be more active against the system. The system is what's broken there, Bryce. Maybe that's a good thing. You ever thought about that? Maybe we need some people like Trump to shake things up, change the way things are going, because they're not going in your favor. Lady B says, thank you, Amanda. Yes, thank you, Amanda. And thank you for reminding me, Lady B. Amy says, true, Fab, you don't. And Amanda says, you're welcome, Lady B. Fab Daddy says, OTDS is very rampant with this channel. What is OTDS? Bryce says, RFK hasn't said anything about microplastics. Yes, he has. I've heard him talk about it before myself. Stop generalizing things you don't know. Aaron says, Bryce is bringing good content. Thank you, Bryce. He's not wrong. He's just misinformed. Debbie says, Bryce, did you wake up this morning, read the 10 Commandments, and decide to break the one that says, do not bear false witness? Good point. Aaron says, ooh, Debbie. Amy says, prayers, Nugget. And John says, why is it always me with health issues? Getting fed up now. It's not just you, buddy. I'm dying over here, too. But it seems like it is, doesn't it? Seems like the whole world comes down on you sometimes. But you just got to be strong and keep pushing forward, my man. You'll make it. And Patty says, smiley, smiley, smiley. And Bryce says, Debbie, I'm not a Christian. Separation of church and state. Unlike what Trump says, since he doesn't follow the Constitution. Okay. Hey, Bryce, where in the Constitution does it mention separation from church and state? Can you give me which chapter and verse? Oh, you can't. And that's because it's not in the Constitution. What you're referring to is the Federalist Papers, which is a group of letters that were sent between then candidates for office discussing how they should go about doing a certain thing. It's not constitutional. This country has and always will be a representative of a Christian nation. The church has always been part of our country, and it always will be. Separation of church and state is not law. You are incorrect, sir. And I know you're not a Christian. That was obvious from the get-go. And Amanda says, oh, Nugget, hopefully it stops soon. Bryce says, I'm a Jew. Just kidding. Do you think that's funny? What's wrong with being a Jew? Amy says, John, I was telling Aaron, the people in the Bible that do the most have the hardest lives. That is true. Patty says, John, you are not the only one, sweetie. Yeah, we're all in this together, John. Bryce says, kitchen filters do not stop forever chemicals. That's why they're called forever chemicals. Well, Bryce, if filters will not stop forever chemicals, and that's why they're called forever chemicals, what do you propose that can be done about forever chemicals, since nothing can stop them? Sounds to me like you just have to deal with it, because it can't be stopped. And that means that you can't blame a certain politician because of their existence. because he didn't cause them, nor can he stop them. Fab Daddy says, the only fishing I do is for compliments. You're handsome, Fab Daddy. Amy says, we don't care what religion you are. We're glad you're here, helping with the algorithm. Right on. Aaron says, you're welcome. How's that? No, you're awesome. How's that? And John says, it's my 50s. And it goes downhill. Thanks, Amanda, and everyone. Yep. Once you hit 50, it's all over from there, buddy. You're just sliding into home place. And Bryson says, saying that the EPA doesn't do anything, meanwhile, you have no idea what they actually do. Well, Bryce, you'd be wrong again. I do know exactly what the EPA does, and I know quite a lot more about it than you do. Stop assuming that you know something you don't know. You don't know me. You don't know anything about me. Stop assuming that you think you do. Fab Daddy says, it sucks when the fish don't bite. I know, right? Especially when they just keep filling up the chat with nonsense. That's a good cup of coffee, thank you. Say it in the microphone, that's why you have it.
It would help if the microphone was on.
It would help.
You're welcome.
You're not doing a whole lot of talking over there, young lady.
No, because I'm paying attention to the bottom of the chat.
I know, right? Aaron says, Bryce, I do ask me how I know. Right. Aaron says, Bryce, I know. Ask me how I know. Amy says, Fab, I like to play with the bluegill near shore. They are quick to suck the worm off of a hook. Good eating, though. I kind of enjoy playing that game, too, Amy. Bryce says Trumpers will applaud when a cop beats down a petty criminal, but will cry when the EPA stops a company from dumping toxic sludge in your fishing spot. Nobody has done either of those things. That is a total hypothetical situation there, Bryce. Stop trying to garner a emotional response. That we don't think in emotions here. We think logically. Miles Ray says, my wife, Michaela, says hi and have a good night. Miles, tell your wife we said hello back, and I hope she has a good night too. And God bless you both. And hi, Michaela. And Bryce says, calling me a cultist. Meanwhile, you have zero factual information about what you're talking about. Again, wrong all the way around, buddy. Who do you think you're talking to here? Amy says, and red deer, Fab. Is that a fish? I don't know what that is. Aaron says, ask me how I know, Bryce. Amy says, ha, 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 ha. Aaron says, sorry, Bryce. Oh, Bruce. Yeah, you said Bruce. It's Bryce. Bryce says, call me a cultist, but I've never felt the need to wear a bright red hat and fly a flag for the past 9 years. Well, neither have I. Do you see a bright red hat on my head? I don't have a bright red flag outside my house either. But I do have an American flag. I suppose that's got red on it. And something tells me that it's no surprise that you don't have an American flag. I did, Aaron. I said he was in a cult. The left-wing cult. Fab Daddy says, I used to fish, but $6 billion fishing license for 3 days of fishing don't work for me. And I pretty much stopped fishing after deep sea fishing near Bodega, and being seasick sucks. Right on. I wouldn't even worry about the fishing license. I'd just go cast a net wherever I needed to, or a fishing pole one. Bryce says, I have a master's in natural science. Please tell me what your education background is. No. And I'll tell you why. Because it doesn't matter. What difference does it make what my education is? And besides that, I would hate to have to embarrass you in front of all these people. Amy says, I wear red on Fridays to support the troops overseas. Right on. Amy says, Red Friday, remember everyone deployed. Aaron says, are you asking me, Bryce, or Jake? I think he's asking me. Amy says, natural science, everything is bullshit. Right. Now you get it. That's where it's all coming from. And Fab Daddy says, I bet I went to school longer than Bryce, and I don't have a degree. I'm a loser. Well, being a person with a degree does not make you a loser or not. That's why I don't talk about it a lot, is because it doesn't matter. And I've said that on this channel before. Whether or not I have a degree or 10 degrees does not change the validity of what I'm saying to you in the slightest. I know lots of people who have degrees that are stupid as a box of rocks. Having a degree does not make you smart. It does not make you correct. It does not make you valuable in your opinion. All it does is prove that you went to a place for a while and most likely did what everybody else does at that place, which is party and have a good time. And as little work as possible. Bryce says PFAS are incredibly persistent in the environment, meaning they don't break down naturally over time. They can remain in the environment for hundreds or even thousands of years, posing long-term risks. Well, what do you propose we do about it, Bryce? You think we should clutch our pearls and get in a panic here on a chat in the middle of the night on a Saturday and that'll fix it? I promise that won't change it at all. Amy says, what's a woman, Bryce? Right. John says he's using his phone or laptop with both, which both contains plastics. Right. And Fab Daddy says, where did PFAS come from? And Bryce said, I said in my comment. You said what? Aaron says, LOL. I built the AI he uses to get his answers. Right on. Fab Daddy says, I know. Does Bryce? I don't think so. Amy says, it's under the 3 dots, the chat option. And Bryce says, do you think microplastics only come from plastic bottles? No. But I do think that's a large portion of them, yes. I think that's how you're likely to get access to them. Aaron says, nope, that's stupid. And Fab Daddy says PFAS are not from plastics. Correct. And Bryce said, I never said they did or didn't. Now, that's the problem with overgeneralizing and saying a bunch of random nonsense. It's hard to walk back and dial into exactly what you were talking about. Which is, if you'll remember correctly, why I tried to avoid that and keep you on topic. But you didn't seem to want to do that. You seem to want to keep throwing up random emotional responses, which does not lend well to a conversation. Which basically, your presence has interrupted this podcast. Nobody has learned a thing because of your random nonsense spewing. So, take that degree of yours and say something smart. Right now. Aaron says, facts, Fab. Amy says, microplastics were a problem long before Trump took office, but somehow it's Trump's fault. Right. That was my point. Where did this problem start? I think you'll find the EPA involved. Bryce says, when did I say it was Trump's fault? In your first comment. Fab Daddy says, PFAS are a derivative of fluorine. Linked compound developed by by accident from DuPont. The compounds were created by accident at DuPont. Gotcha. Aaron says, okay, I vote we ignore this bottle crap and move on. And Bryce says, I gave you a fact you did not. That Trump is repelling protections that kept us safe while banning proven safe chemicals. Well, actually, you're wrong, because those things that he is banning did not keep you safe. You have the same access to all of that you did before. Nothing has changed. The EPA is largely a red tape manufacturer. That's what they do. They put up roadblocks. Those roadblocks are not good for business. And they're largely out of proportion in the first place. Some of them have good ideas. Most of them are nonsense. And just by saying a thing does not mean you gave a fact. You did not give one factoid in any of the things you've stated. Every word you've said has came from an emotional standpoint. Not one fact in all of it. Just by using a word does not mean you're giving facts. I asked you for specific facts. You did not give any of them. Amy says, I used to have a dog that could remove a bottle cap. Nice. Did it die of microplastics? Kevin says, Bryce, you said Trump was dismantling the EPA, which pretty much said that that's putting us all in danger. Correct. And it's not. And Bryce says, but you guys care more about feelings over facts. We're not the ones appealing from an emotional standpoint, Bryce. You are. So you're projecting as usual. Bryce says, okay, is that incorrect? Yes. Yes, it is. Amy says, yawn. Bryce says, yawn equals I refuse to face reality. Correct. Amy says, same crap, different troll. Exactly. Debbie says, no, Bryce, we just read more than the headlines. Fab Daddy says, empathy or caring about feelings is a good trait. I suppose. Not when you're trying to win an argument, though. Kevin says, Bryce, you have yet to say what any other president has done to protect us from those forever chemicals. As if you could be protected from a forever chemical. That's my point, kind of. That you're saying something as if there's a thing you could do about it. And I got news for you. We created this boat together as people. Everybody switched to plastics when they became readily available. They're everywhere. They're all over the planet. There's a Texas-sized hunk of plastic in the ocean from scraps of plastic that have accumulated there. The size of Texas. There is nothing you can do to stop the influx of microplastics and the effects that it has on the human body. You cannot filter it out. There's not a thing you can do to protect yourself from it, least of all from the EPA, which is a government organization which has the same problem all other government organizations have. They're government organizations. They suck at their job. The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. quoted from Ronald Reagan. Bryce says, cool. Explain to me using facts how I'm wrong. Bryson, you spend the majority of your time watching MSDNC or CNN or The View, and you get all of your headlines from places like Washington Post or some of those other internet rags, and you listen to a group of people whose main objective is to win an election, and they don't give a shit what they got to do so, including telling lies and spreading propaganda. And that's a fact. And everything that you've said in this conversation thus far backs that fact up. You are largely incorrect about all of your assumptions. You certainly don't know who you're talking to or give any respect or credence where it's due. And overall, you sound like a 12-year-old. So, there's that. But you said you had a degree, so unless you're a brilliant 12-year-old, that's not the case. Or you're lying about the degree, one or the other. Natural sciences is not anything I'd be proud of, but whatever. Amy says, oh, Bryce, you have no idea what I've been through. I bet I've lived with more than you can fathom. Well, that's the problem with taking a position from an emotional standpoint is you don't consider the people you're talking to or what they might know. You just think you know everything, which is the problem, and that's a fact. Bryce says, am I defending other presidents? No, but you're certainly not defending your point either, because your point is Trump bad, therefore whatever he did is going to hurt everybody. But whatever he did is no different than whatever the rest of them did. So the question was, what has other presidents done to protect you from microplastics, which you have yet to answer? Because that's part of the thinking process, Bryce. If you're going to make an assumption, you got to have something to back it up with. That's what we're asking for. And there's your problem. Bryce says, Amy, I really don't care. Facts, not feelings. Well, that's your problem right there. You just took the one person in this room that might defend you, and you just said something insulting and shitty to them. So that just lost all credibility that you may have ever had here. Aaron says, Bryce, daily it back. I don't know what that means.
Dial it back.
Dial it back. I got you. Yeah, that's a warning, Bryce, in case you can't read the room. Amanda says,
Check yourself, Bryce.
check yourself. Who you think you is up in here? Check yourself. Kevin says, Bryce, no, but you are condemning Trump for not doing what every other president has failed to do. Right. And Fab Daddy says, Bryce, because I care about your feelings, I'm going to let you know that you won't change their stance, but I applaud the conversation. And Bryce says, what? Elon said, empathy is just weakness. Well, I don't care what Elon said. I don't listen to Elon. Do you? Aaron says, debate, you can stay. Insults are bad, my friend. The only insults you're allowed to lob in this chat are accurate ones. If you're not accurate, don't say it. And Bryce says, empathy is a weakness. Well, I don't have empathy for you, so you're good. And Amy says, don't even start crap with me, Bryce. Until you've experienced the trauma I've lived, you need to leave me alone. I've been making random jokes, and you took it personally. How about that? And Bryce says, Amy, what does what you've gone through have to do with what we are talking about? Well, that just got you timed out. So now maybe you'll learn to watch your mouth a little. Fab Daddy says, Bryce, it's usually me debating these on the Democrats. Peeps, just know you were going to have a tough time changing minds here. But I can honestly say, report that they are great here. And we have more in common. And then it cuts off. John says, leave her alone and be respectful to the ladies. Exactly. Bryce, if you're going to be here, the first rule in this chat is be nice to the ladies. Don't disrespect the ladies. If you can't do that, you can't be here, my friend. And when your time is up, 5 minutes, and you're able to speak again, the first thing you need to say is, I'm sorry. If you can't, then I will ban you permanently. Aaron says, state your business respectfully, but do not come in here and flex. And Amy says, Bryce, I yawned, and you said I needed to face reality. I was explaining my reality, so fuck off. Aaron says, Bryce, your ass is gone. And Fab Daddy says, Bryce, do you need a hug? He needs to go outside and touch some grass is what he needs to do. Aaron says, say one more thing. Go on. Amy says, let him stay, Aaron, and embarrass himself more. Well, I timed him out for 5 minutes for his Epstein comments. In case you're wondering why I did that. Boy, chat is moving tonight. Lady B says, Bryce, I'm emotionally intelligent. I care about and respect other people's feelings. That's the way my daddy raised me. But don't mistake my kindness for weakness. Don't start none. There won't be none. Amen. Amy says, we care very much about each other. Amen. Fab Daddy says, oh, Lady B, I like it. Aaron says, how about a 10-minute sit down? I got him for 5. Kevin says, Bryce, Biden showered with his daughters. True. Amy says, trolls are good for business. Yes, they are. Kevin says, Aaron, let him continue making a fool of himself. And Aaron says, okay, Amy, I'll respect your wishes. And Fab Daddy says, I believe Trump was a pedo. I can't prove it, so I will let it slide. At his age, he probably can't use it anymore. Well, first of all, there's no evidence whatsoever that Trump is a pedophile. The only reason Epstein ever got charged with a crime in the first place is because of Trump. He's the one that turned him in. It was his testimony that got Epstein put in jail the first time. Of course, the government let him out and said that it was above their pay grade and that he worked with the CIA or something, so they let him go. And then he continued business as usual. But it was Trump that brought that to light in the first place. I'll forgive you for not knowing that because the media won't cover that. But that is true. And that's the way that occurred. Trump kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago and then turned him in for trying to seduce his wait staff to come work for him. Apparently there was some young girls that worked at Mar-a-Lago, and Epstein was trying to recruit them, and that's why Trump kicked him out. So I respect the fact that you wouldn't know that, but that is the case. Now, if you want evidence of somebody being a pedophile, just look at Joe Biden. Read his daughter's diary and see what you come away with. Listen to him as he talks about children in public. And how he likes them rubbing on his legs and sitting on his lap and weird things like that. Look at him sniffing at little girls who are pulling away from him because they know instinctively that he's a monster. Pay attention to the world around you. I understand why you want Trump to be a pedophile, because that would make you right about him. But the problem is you are not right about him. Trump is not a good man. He's arrogant and shallow and rich, and he can have whatever he wants. Believe that. But in the world of morality, he's probably way, way ahead of all of the Democrats. I don't think he's a pedophile. He might like young girls. He's not a pedophile. You name one man that don't like young girls, and I'll show you a man that isn't alive. And John says, and Biden sniffing kids, that's weird. Yes, it is. Amy says, every time the fool comments, it helps the algorithms, the algorithms. Aha. It does that. Fab Daddy says, Al Gore 2028. Jesus Christ. I hope not. If that's all you guys got, y'all need to go back to the drawing board or something. Aaron says, okay, Sir Kev, you saved his head for now. Well, he doesn't seem to be wanting you to take it easy on him. Yes, Bryce, we all know that he said that. He wasn't wrong. What's sad is that you find exception with that, having talked worse than that yourself with your friends. That's what's wrong. Debbie says the water in Flint was not the federal government's problem. It was the local city's politicians that decided to change from clean water source to a different source to save money. Right on. And Lady B says, I like you too, Fab Daddy, sweetheart. Aw, that's sweet, Lady B. Thank you. Amanda says, OMG, that is not what he said. Use the correct context. Who was that for, Amanda?
That was a Bryce comment.
Oh, okay.
Up a few ones back.
That's all right. Bryce is digging himself a hole he can't get out of. Amy says, I need more coffee. And now, popcorn. Watching the verbal whooping Bryce is getting from Jake in chat. Ha ha. I've managed to not release the Kraken on him just yet, but he's pushing for it. Debbie says the local politicians that caused it was doing time now. Good. I swear people need to read more than the headlines. That's the problem with today in the TikTok brain, is they can't contain more than the headlines. That's all they know. Unfortunately, it doesn't make for a good debate when all they know is what CNN says. I hate that. I miss the days when you can debate somebody that's actually versed in the intelligence that they're spewing and actually knows what they're talking about. Aaron says the one thing is for sure is he's feeding Jake. I wish he was. That's another problem with people that come in here and take over the chat. They don't ever donate. I wonder why. They like having their time, but they don't consider that I'm giving them that time. John says, Bryce, stick to one thing at a time, flip-flopping. That's all he knows. He's already lost that argument, so he's flipping to other things, hoping he can start more of an argument, take up more of my time. Still not willing to give a donation, though. Caleb Entertainment said, hi. Hello, Caleb. Welcome to the show. Kevin says, TDS is strong with this one. Amy says, John, he wearing flip-flops. He is that. Bryce, you don't know what the word fascist means. Amy says, hi, Caleb Entertainment. Welcome. Kevin says, LOL. And Amanda says, he has an aluminum foil hat. He might. Fab Daddy says, OTDS is strong. Kevin, what does OTDS mean? That's not a word. That's something you made up, so tell us what it means, because we don't know. And Amanda says, define fascist, Bryce. Yeah, you can't. Airports in the 1700s, says Amy. Aaron says, LOL, Amanda. The hat comment. I bet his head's in the microwave. John says, I'm not a fascist. My nephew is black. Amanda says, yes, Aaron. Amy says, a boom bow, a mow wow, Elvira. Giddy up, boom ba, mow mow. Aaron says, Amy, that was that back in the future war, LOL. Fab Daddy says, Trump is building a ballroom for the White House. Sounds like it. I'm all right with that. Kevin says, Fab Daddy, with what money? Amanda says, yes, Trump is building a ballroom to seat 600 people for dinners and meetings, since there isn't a place that big at the White House. This way, they don't have to rent places for this. Sounds like a good idea. Amy says, I'm just ignoring the fool, Mr. Master's degree in natural science. Wow.
That was funny, Amy. That was great. Natural science. I bet you he believes in what's it called? The reincarnation and the dinosaurs are now chickens.
Oh, yeah. Dinosaurs become chickens? Probably. Debbie says California burns because they have no deforestation policies. They protect the salmon and the smelt, but do not fill reservoirs and shut off fire hydrants. Yeah, they did a study a while back and found out that like 85 to 90% of the fire hydrants had no water running to them, and that they had reservoirs that were for that very reason, and they were empty. They were empty because the governor made a choice to not fill them. They used that money for something else, but it wasn't to fill up the fire hydrant reservoirs. Go figure. John H. says, Bryce, you're a clout chaser, ain't you? Yep. Fab Daddy says, Bryce, they don't worship Trump. I know this for a fact. They worship Jesus and our Lord. I'm not sure if they worship the Holy Spirit. We worship God. We don't worship Jesus, and we don't worship the Holy Spirit. We worship God. Commandment number 1, I am the Lord your God. There shall be no other gods before me, period. Commandment number 2 covers statues and sticks and stones and emblems and images. The Holy Spirit is the Spirit of God, and Jesus is his only begotten Son. But we worship God through Jesus. Does that make sense? We do not worship Trump. If you think we do, you don't understand what the word worship means, and you might be deluding yourself. Aaron says, whose name is on the show again? Well, that solves that. Apparently, he doesn't understand that, Aaron. Amy says, LOL, do your research. Quote, default generic answer. Take a drink every time he uses left-wing rhetoric. If I did that, I'd be drunk. And there are no Epstein files, Bryce. And you don't know anything about what research I do or don't do. The sad part about all this, Bryce, is that you're going to miss an opportunity to speak to a real philosopher, a real human being that understands the world you live in a way that you've never even imagined, because you can't see the forest for the trees. You are so up your own ass, you're going to miss the opportunity to actually have a real conversation and learn something about your world. That's sad. I don't envy you that. Amanda says this country is so effed up because of sleeping Biden, not because of Trump. Amy says, gulp, gulp. Kevin says, Bryce is a Democrat. Judge appointed by Obama has refused to release those files. Batshit Crazy says, preach it, son. What's up, Batshit? Nice to see you, buddy. How are you? Amy says, hi, Bats. Swig. Aaron says, LOL, Amy. Gulp, gulp. I went right to the gutter in my mind. That's glug, glug. Amanda says, Bryce, last warning. Don't be disrespectful or I will remove your ass. And I batshit crazy. In case you haven't noticed, Bryce, you have been timed out. You are talking in vain. No one is hearing you. Kevin says, Bryce, prove yourself right. Amanda says, Trump said, real and legitimate information, not the fake stuff. Correct. John says, Bryce, that's your final warning. Aaron says, he is right now, fool. Amy says, it must be exhausting fighting so hard to be right when you're wrong. Yeah. Batshit Crazy says, FKH, FJB forever. Right on. Fab Daddy says, it was a wealth distribution thing with Van Buren. See, our ancestors didn't trust the super rich, and being an American president with a silver spoon didn't sit well with the public. Got it. Kevin says, Bryce asked that question to the Democrat judge that ordered the sealed from the public. Ordered the Epstein files sealed from the public. Yeah, you didn't know anything about that, Kevin. Amy says, takes another drink. Batshit Crazy says, hello, rich folks and others too. What's up, Batshit? Nice to see you. Fab Daddy says, there's a newspaper article about a congressman saying if he takes a gold spoon from the White House, he won't speak bad about him. About him to his constituents. Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about there, Fab. Kevin says, Bryce, I never heard Trump say that, because Trump didn't say that. Aaron says, Bryce, one more insult. Kevin says, Bryce, that depends on the source. I can almost guarantee you what the source will be. You can't send links in this chat anyway. But Bryce, if you're going to continue to keep up the whole chat, if you're going to hijack the whole thing, you need to consider putting a little bit in the kitty. You know. VJ. You can do that at CashApp, $ jakejohnsonband. Aaron says, don't call people stupid. Amy says, no links in chat. That'll get you removed. Right on. Kevin says, Bryce, one thing that's 100% clear to me, that you are obsessed with hating Trump. Now ask yourself, why are you spending that much energy hating a man that clearly has nothing to do with your life? Amy says, random links could be harmful to the chat. They are not allowed. Correct. Fab Daddy says, hey, Aaron, relax. Aaron says, nope. Amy says, wow, I was just telling you the rules. Head in the sand. You have one left, and then you're done. Bryce, you have been warned. You don't seem to be backing up any, so you get what's coming to you, buddy.
He's back in the chat doing it again. He's fixing to get booted for real.
Well, boot him then. Stop talking about it and just get him out of here. That way we don't have to worry about it anymore. I'm halfway through the chat, and he's taking up a lot of real estate for nonsense.
Done.
All right. Aaron says, I've done nothing wrong, Fab, so I'm good. You are good. And John says, Bryce, you're amazing for the algorithm. Kevin says, Bryce, well, when 95% of the media has lied to the American people about Trump, then yes, they cannot be trusted. I'm glad you see that, Kevin, because that's exactly the kind of thing that I talk about regularly, is that you can't trust the sources. When the experts are lying to your face, you have to look elsewhere for the truth. And it's a hard thing to swallow, because who do you go to? How do you find out what's going on if everybody's lying to you? Well, the first way you do that is you have to come to the realization and admit it to yourself that everything is bullshit. Everything. On both sides. No matter who you're hearing it from, it's bullshit. Then you have to go looking for the things you want to know about and read up on what's actually happening. Find out all the sources you can find where they got their information from. And then you have to make a determination based on reality as to what you think is going on. That makes you either the expert or the person who's incorrect, because you have to make that assessment for yourself. Because you can't trust other people to bring you the truth anymore. You just can't. There's too much out there in the way of nonsense. And unfortunately, the younger people or the less initiated They can't work their way through it. All they can see is the bullshit that's being handed to them, and they believe it because they were taught that the experts know what they're talking about. Well, in this case, in this world we're living in today, the experts are the ones lying to you. Amy says, first time will be a small time out. Do not disrespect, argue your point, but stop with the insults. Well, that's the problem. He has no interest in making a point. His fun is insulting the people that are here, and that's why I allowed him to be kicked out. If he would have just argued the point, there would have been no issue there, but he didn't. And when I timed him out for the insults, he kept making them. No evidence that he could learn. So that's why he's gone now. Let that be a lesson to the rest of you trolls. If you want to have an argument, I'll have it with you. I'll entertain your position. Don't be insulting the people that are here. Marco Polo says Trump does something good, 100% real. Of course he does good things. And Marco says, you guys are so blind. Well, you'd have to describe what we're not seeing in order for that to be a true statement, Marco. What is it that we don't see? Amy says, hi, Marco, welcome. Steve Trulio says, Trump does nothing good. He shits on all of us. Well, that's not true, Steve. Why would you say something like that? What evidence do you have to back that statement up? Amy says, Marco, my vision is poor, so that's why I wear glasses. Don't mock the visually impaired. Amy says, hi, Steve, welcome. Lady B says, likey awesome daddy. Another compliment. Nice. Amy says, don't mock the visually impaired. Kevin says, sorry, but I can't deal with people that are outright full of shit. I know, right? It's a difficult thing. Fab Daddy says, I think Bryce cares and is probably nice. I'm sure he is getting frustrated. Be kind, mods. Well, no, he had his opportunity. He's been told plenty of times, Fab Daddy. When you get to the point where everybody in the chat is telling you to stop insulting people, you're not interested in learning anything. Aaron says it's good for a view, right? John says it's definitely Trollville tonight. Yes. Amy says Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew. Yeah, no word about them though, huh? Kevin says John sure is. Aaron says always is. Fab Daddy says, it's okay, Bryce. I care about you. I love you like a redheaded stepchild. Do you know Bryce, Fab Daddy? Because Bryce has dug himself a hole he can't get out of. And for the record, I gave him the opportunity to state his case. He did not. An hour's worth of it now. I don't know what you expect out of a person, but after an hour you hadn't said anything of substance, you're wasting my time. Lady B says, oh, Fab Daddy. Bryce says just the facts. No feelings or emotions, remember? Amy says, right, Lady B. He did say that. Fab Daddy says, Bryce, you're catching on. But if you got a channel and wish to give commentary, I might watch. Fab Daddy, I don't know if you want to go down that rabbit hole or not. It's hard enough digging out of the nonsense you already think. You want to add to it by listening to that? Lady B says, yep, Amy, Bryce sure dude. Amy says, reminds me of another viewer who was permanently banned. Truth or something like that. Fab Daddy says, that was what's truth. Yeah, Truth was a piece of work himself, wasn't he? I gave that guy a whole lot of rope, and he couldn't stand it. He had to hang himself with it. Lady B says, typo, dude sure did. Right. Patty says, he may have been on a rowing team and then on to Harvard. Maybe. Amy says, nope, Truth came back the other night. I remember the name. Yep, and he got kicked out again. Doing the same nonsense. Aaron says, remember Truth? Yep. Amy says, Aaron, yeah, he ended up being banned permanently. Yeah, because when they start losing the argument, the first thing to do is start insulting people. Can't have that. John says, I went to the school of hard knocks, the school of life. Me too, John. Me too. Aaron says, right, new account. They got 7. It's possible. Lady B says, Amy, Lamau, or Lumfow, laughing my effing ass off. I think that's what it stands for. Fab Daddy says, even a broke clock is right twice in a day, so there's hope for us all. And for all of you. All of who? I'm right more than twice a day, Fab Daddy. My clock is working functionally. Amy says, I did not know that, Aaron. Why would anyone want that many useless... why would anybody want that many unless they're up to no good? Exactly. Exactly. It's me says, you can get a degree. I got one. On the job as apprentice. 3 years of school, 3 years on the job, and I became a journeyman. That's right. Yeah, I can buy a degree right now. There are places where you can go and get a degree in anything you want. Master's degree, PhD, whatever you want. All you got to do is pay for it. That's why I don't talk about my education that much, because it doesn't matter. If you want to know if I'm educated, well, first of all, pay attention to the wealth of knowledge that I put out on this channel. That ought to tell you. Second of all, yeah, I'm educated. Highly. Way more highly than the average bear, which is why I do this for a living. Third of all, does it matter? No, it doesn't, because I'm talking to a lot of people that have no education at all. Amanda says, right, Nugget, I agree. Amanda, why aren't you talking?
Because you're reading on through the chat. Get her done.
Well, say something.
Something. You're doing good.
All right. I'm never going to get to the end. It'll be midnight.
You're getting there. You're only 27 minutes behind.
Wow. Aaron says, well, some people have seen channel when they are big YouTubers. Some people have 7 channels when they're big YouTubers. I only have 1. I don't have the energy to keep up with that many things. And Aaron says the only other is trolls. Right on. And he says, Fab, I had a Mickey Mouse watch. The old kind with hands and a dial. Mickey would play with himself twice a day around 6:30, but only for a minute or so. Fab Daddy says, LOL, dirty mouse. Amanda says,
LOL, Amy.
What it is says, what the hell and nuclear subs is going on here? Was backlash and was backwash and mouthwash and dental floss. Huh? Yeah, we have nuclear subs being placed off of the coast of Russia. Apparently, it's a power move. Trump is like, hey, you see what I got here? Look here. That's what that's all about. I don't know anything about dental floss and mouthwash or backwash. But we got derailed what it is. And how are you, buddy? We got derailed. Bryce wanted to educate us about the vastness of the EPA and what it stands for. And never got around to it. So here we are. Kevin says, hello, what it is. And Soph Allen's here. She says, hey, guys, how are you doing today? Happy Saturday from Australia. Hello, Soph. How are you, Disco Queen? Kevin says, hello, Soph. Amanda says,
Hi, Soph.
Amy says, hi, Soph. Amy says, hi, what it is. What it is says, hello, Kevin and Untethered Live. What's up, what it is? Nice to see you. John says, hi, Soph. Good to see you. Thumbs up. Soph says, I hope that you're doing really well. We are. Aaron says, Disco Soph. And Fab Daddy says, PFAS and Teflon-based products. Teflon is safe, but the chemicals used to make Teflon usable are PFAS. Yeah, Teflon is not safe. It's very bad for you. Jewish Cunt 87 says, hey, brother. Hello. That's a really nasty name you got there. Welcome to the show. So Fallon says, no, Aaron, next Friday. That'll be Disco Friday. Got it. Gahad Jabbar says, hi, sweetie. Hello, Gahada. Gahada? Gahada? Gata? Gata Jaber? How you say that? Amy says, great Scott. 1.22 gigawatts for the flux capacitor to work. Gahada says, hi. Hello. Aaron says, it's what I call you, Soph. Disco Soph. And what it is says, microplastics, global warming, corn syrup, and Viagra. Nice. Let's see if I can do that. Bakelite, fructose corn syrup, motor oil, and gingivitis. Your turn. Amy says, hi, Gaheda. Amy says, Amanda, Gaheda is making moves on your man. Amanda, Gaheda is making moves on your man.
Yep, I already said that she ain't woman enough to handle him.
It's all right. I ain't woman enough to handle me either. Aaron says, Soph, how you feeling? Amy says 1.21 gigawatts. Damn typo. Was only 0.1 gigawatt that you messed up on. I would have accepted 1.22. 1.21 is just rounding up to the nearest number. That's okay. That's acceptable in the world of electronics. Aaron says, Amy, she got a mic too. Oh, of course she does. She just won't use it. What it is says, recycle and don't throw it away. Use glass. Well, unfortunately, what it is, recycling is a scam. It all goes to the landfill. I don't know if you're aware of that or not, but your efforts are in vain if you are a recycler. And yes, use glass whenever possible. Glass and stainless steel, that's the best way to do it. SPPJ says smash. Aaron says pass. Well, thank you. Amanda says it's okay. She's not woman enough to handle him. You're the one that chose to stay here. So move along, little doggy. SPPJ says smiley face, and Amanda says, what it is. The recycling ends up in the same platform at the landfill as the trash. I refuse or upcycle instead of putting it in the recycling. Well, the best thing you can do is burn that stuff. I know. You're not supposed to burn plastic. Trust me, it's better for the environment in the long run. Get you a barrel and burn your trash. It's way better than recycling. SPPJ says, don't. Your turn. What is it with you people and saying nonsensical things in a chat room? Do you not come to have a conversation? Are you literally that bored with your lives that you just doom scroll and say random things? Is that funny to you? Aaron says, no insults. And Amy says, Flukes, it's his show. Where's yours? Right. I do smoke a pack a day, SP. You have a problem with that? And I forgive you for thinking that. I do sound that way. But that's not the reason I sound that way. My vocal cords were damaged due to COVID-19. That happened 2 years ago. Before that, I sang like a canary. What it is says, Bracey, I think that means Bryce. The fact is, need to move on and get the hell out of this adult conversation and go do your homework and come back and turn it in. Right on. Amanda says, and why is that, Flukes? Why is that? Aaron says, Flukes capacitor. Ha ha ha. I've not insulted anyone, Flukes. Not once. And no, you're not allowed. And why is that? Because it's my show and I make the rules. But, you know, if you'll go back and listen to the actual show, you'll find out that I said the only time you're allowed to hurl an insult is if it's correct. Patty says, message retracted. I can't read it if you retract it. Amanda says, nobody insults around here. Amy says, SPDJ, start with hello. His vocal cords were damaged from long COVID. Smoking doesn't help, but it's from an illness. Correct. But I'm also a grown man, and I chose to smoke, and I will accept the consequences for what it causes. I don't need a child telling me not to do something that I decided to do. What it is says, in my opinion, being book smart is just another term for stupid unless you have hands-on training, with which most kids have to go to you once they get out of a 4-year college. But dumb is dumb to the real learned. Another effing know-it-all. Go to take some Geritol, know-it-all. Go take some Geritol, know-it-all. Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of that. A lot of that. Unfortunately, being smart and being educated are not the same thing. Here's the problem with that. You get a guy, goes to college for 4 years and learns to party and, manages to pass by the skin of his teeth, and then he comes away thinking that he knows a thing. When in reality, what that person did was accept whatever the professor told him as the truth. The professor who has never had a real job, who does not live in a real world, whose entire methodology and intellect comes from academia, and then he passes on his weird ideas to these children, and then they go out into the world claiming to know a thing. Here's the problem with that. Just because you read a book about something does not mean you know it. You have no experience. You have no training. You have no understanding of the things around it. You just know a thing you read. That means you can remember good. That does not mean you're smart. Smart is being able to connect dots and jump to conclusions based on critical thinking. They don't teach that anymore, unfortunately. Soph says, ha, Aaron, you are so funny. And John says, I work as a street cleaning operative. Recycling goes to the landfill. Yes, it does. Aaron says, flukes, that's fine, but debate, no insults, please. Fab Daddy says, it's a stretch to assume that less EPA will result in bad quality of life. So I agree with Jake on this one. Right. Just because they put a thing in place, the EPA, that happened back in the Clinton era. They built this establishment. And if you go to that building, it's largely empty. There's nobody there. There's one or two offices in that building that are occupied. And what they do there is they put up red tape and they cause you to have to jump through hoops to get a thing done. It used to take like 20 years to build a bridge. 20 years. You had to lay it out. You had to jump through all the hoops, fill out all the paperwork, and then wait for the government to respond. And in that time, the construction site sits there unused. 15, 20 years before they can build a bridge, which can be built in a year. What Trump is doing is allowing the construction to happen without all of the red tape. In most cases. What does that mean? That means that more things will get done with less invasive nonsense. Do you think that just because there's an EPA that they're actually cleaning the water and the air? They're not. And if you remove them, nothing is going to change other than all of the red tape will be gone and you'll be able to make stuff happen faster. That's pretty much it. There's more to it than that, obviously, but that's the gist of it. That's the gist of it. Amy says, SPDJ, you should listen to his older music albums. He was a wonderful musician before he got sick. Thank you. I appreciate that, Amy. Patty says, PBS may be defunded after today. That's because they, just like NPR, has turned into a left-wing propaganda hub. They're not actually doing anything positive for the people. Looks, I do not think that I have long COVID. I had long COVID 2 years ago. And I did have that. And that has nothing to do with the FDA, which is the Food Administration. That they look at over-the-counter medicines and food and stuff like that. That has nothing to do with COVID. You're an idiot. What it is drop the hammer already, Judge Amanda. Kick him out of the court. Amanda.
He's been booted.
Soph says, I wonder what the Bible verse is going to be for tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to be in the book of Romans. So go check it out. Fab Daddy said, COVID is real. I hope you never get sick. Me too. It's a bad thing to have to go through. Neil Lindora says, I'm going to lob in. You're great, and I love you. I love you too, Neil. Thank you for being here. Hit that subscribe button if you hadn't done so already. Aaron says, Flukes, that's 2. Getting thin there, Flukes. What it is says it's too late to check himself. He done wrecked himself. Amanda says, Flukes, he did have a very serious case of COVID, so who the hell are you to say otherwise? What it is says, Bryce coming in as the truth? Is truth hiding under a new name? I never considered that. It's possible what it is. Aaron said, yep. Amy says, I mentioned COVID, Amanda, after SP said something about Jake's voice. Thank you. Aaron says, and he brought toilet paper with him. Amy says, Bryce's truth's other account. Really? Well, it's amazing that he ended up with the same end result, getting kicked out. If you come under 2 different names and the same thing happens, maybe you should consider that it's you. Uh-oh, my chat jumped. What's the number?
1027.
Amanda says, yes, Amy, and then Flukes made some smart-ass comment about it. And he says, my internet is slow. Well, Flukes, it doesn't matter what you believe, does it? I don't care what you believe. Why do you think it matters what you believe? You think anybody here cares what you think? They don't. Amanda says it was a smart-ass comment. The Asylum Beyond the Dead said hi. Hello, Asylum Beyond the Dead. How is life? Or death? Amy says, I believe it because my best friend's dad died from it. I came pretty close to dying from it myself. I didn't die, but I felt like I was gonna. Fab Daddy says, message retracted. Flukes, you are a sock account. It's probably Truth and Bryce. Patty says, Jake, you sounded like Medea. Just say it one more time. It's too late to wreck yourself. He done checked himself. Something, whatever it was I said.
Just say it one more time is what you said.
Just say it one more time. Say it one more time.
There you go.
You think I should put a bunch of makeup on and put a fake bra on and walk around in a tutu?
You'd look better in a muumuu.
I'm not above it. I would do it for your entertainment. If I thought it made you happy, I'd be all over it. Yes. I might even shave my mustache off for that.
Oh, no.
Amanda says, LOL, Patty. And Fab Daddy says, one son and started in February this year. That's sus. One sub and started in February this year. Yeah, that is suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Soph says, is everything okay? Yes, everything's fine, Soph. How are you? Amy says, super chats are available. Also, PayPal and Cash App support the show. Yes, paypal.me/JakeJohnsonBand or Cash App $JakeJohnsonBand or super chat. I appreciate you very much. If you're going to waste a bunch of my time, the least you could do is consider donating a little to the channel. And Fab Daddy says, message retracted again. I can't read it if you retract it. Aaron says, how you been feeling, Soph? Flukes, we support Trump also. I don't know what you've been on about tonight, but we're largely in the same camp if you follow what I've been saying. And Fab Daddy says, ooh, that's your issue. And Soph says, yep, I'm okay, Aaron. How about you? Amanda says, I like sitting on your lap, Jake. Sit on my lap and talk about the first thing that pops up.
Yeah, buddy.
Is that your toe, or are you happy to see me? Amy says, he's not perfect. He makes mistakes, but I like some of his policies. Trump, yeah. Yeah, I don't know why there's this big gap between supporting Trump and worshiping Trump. Why do you think we have to worship Trump just because we voted for him? Nobody here thinks he's a perfect man. Nobody here even thinks we would like him. You don't have to like the president. He just has to be a good businessman. And he is. I don't know where this idea came from. Aaron says, I'm okay, Soph. Do you still do your work? And Soph says, good job for timing him out, Jake. Thank you, ma'am. Chris Lynch. I beg your pardon, why do you gotta be racist? Luke, for real, you're clearly a child. Do you think anybody would fall for that? Do you get some kind of sick, twisted pleasure out of saying that or making someone else say that? Or do you think that most adults don't read what they think before they spew out nonsense? Read what they have to repeat. Use your brain, Luke, for real. Soph says, yep, I still go to work, Aaron, on Wednesdays and Tuesdays. Or Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And Amy says, not here, Luke. We don't tolerate that here. And Soph says, praying for everyone who is going through a hard time right now. Thank you, Soph. I'm sure that there's a lot of us that need prayer. Well, Flukes, I'm not a liar. So you're incorrect in your assessment. Second of all, why would you think that anybody would lie about something like that? Aaron says, Flukes, I think you might be done now. Might be. And John says, prayers for you, Soph. It's me, says Flint. It was a Republican governor. He got sued and lost. Well, I don't know anything about that, but I'd say anybody that made the decision that caused the people of Flint, Michigan to have to drink that lead poison water probably deserves to get fired and probably jailed. Republican or Democrat alike. What it is, what I meant to say is the younger kids that go to college are just book smart. I shouldn't say they're stupid. Well, it's not stupidity as much as it is lack of education. They think they're getting an education. That's why they go to school. It's not their fault that they're not being taught anything. It's actually the people who run those institutions' fault. Because we used to have education in this country. When I went to college, they still taught people how to think. And school is way different now than it was when I went. Amanda says, Flukes, what do you mean by that? Explain yourself. Well, donate then. Don't just stand there. That's Cash App, $JakeJohnsonBand. And if you're getting kicked out, it's because of insults. It's not because of what you said that you believe. We're trying to stop people from insulting everybody. And yes, you did call me a liar. So that's probably why you're getting kicked out. But if you didn't mean me, you should reframe that thought and put it another way. So Fallon says, thanks, John. I appreciate it. What it is says they're just ignorant because once they get out of the 4 years of schooling, then they have to go into life and learn everything all over again, hands-on. Right. And it's actually not until they get out in the world that they realize they've been duped by their college because nothing that they learned squares up with what they're faced with. Unfortunately, these young people today, they don't have any life experience going into college, so they don't know to look out for what the pitfalls of it are. So they learn all this nonsense, lesbian basket weaving or whatever it is that they learn in college, and then they go out into the real world and they're shocked to find out that there's no job for them. And that if they do get a job, they're expected to work, and they don't get to be entitled. This is a problem. It's a problem that's going to implode upon itself because nobody is going to put up with that in the real world. And Aaron says, wait. Fab Daddy says, 2 and 5. I hope you all goodwill and peaceful hearts. See you on the next one. Fab Daddy, God bless you, sir. Thank you for being here. We'll catch you next time. Aaron says, nobody. I'm sitting your butt down to think. And Amanda says, good night, Fab. Luke's, I don't care what you call it. What I had was very real, and I was very sick for a very long time, 5 months. I lost my career over it. I was a singer, a professional singer, and then I lost my voice due to the sickness that I got that was created in labs. Real is a state of thought. It's not real in that nature created it. That's not true. It was created in a laboratory. It is a real sickness, and you can get it and die from it. I'm sorry. That's just the truth of the matter. I'm not going to admit to something that isn't correct. And Amanda agrees with me. COVID was real. It was made, but it's very real. I saw it firsthand a few times. So did I, by having it. Amy says, it is real. The hype is not real, but it's very real. My best friend's dad died from it. Aaron says, in 10, he can come back and say sorry. Well, that must be one handsome shooter, Big Will. And Soph says, yeah, Aaron, I agree with you there. League No Meow says, Ozzy. I have been accused of looking like Ozzy. Marco Polo says, I don't know what to trust these days. I don't even think the moon is real. I understand your reasoning for that. It is, but I understand why you think that. And Aaron says, thanks. And Amy says, Ozzy was a legend. Crazy train. Marco, Ozzy was not anti-Trump. Matter of fact, one of the last interviews he had, he gave Trump props, and so did his daughter and his wife. He was a Democrat, but he was not anti-Trump. Amy says, music is music. It's good for the soul. Amen to that. And you're not a Democrat or a Republican when you're rocking out a crazy train. Aaron said he still made iconic music. I didn't listen to him, but I know he changed how we do music. Yeah, he was definitely instrumental in changing the face of metal music and the face of the rock star image. He contributed a lot to that. He was a great presence in music. Marco says, I don't want to listen to drug-abusing satanic worshipers. Well, you better not listen to anybody then, because that's prevalent in that world. Amy says, I'm eating the moon now in cubes. I'm talking about cheese. Aaron says, what kind, Amy? Marco says, I'm crackers for cheese. Amy says, pepper jack cheese cubes. I got some of those. I ate some Ritz crackers with cream cheese on them this afternoon. That was good. Good little snack. Aaron says, oh man, one of my favorites. Yeah, I love pepper jack cheese. It's good stuff. Pepper jack, Colby jack, I like it all. Amanda says,
we had cheese and crackers for lunch today. It was yummy.
Amy says, it was free from the caterers yesterday. Hey, free cheese is good cheese. Believe that. Aaron says, I'm getting up to get some cheese right now. Amanda says,
LOL, Aaron.
John says, don't matter what Ozzy did as long as he believed in God. Right on. I think he came to terms with that before he died. He was seen with a Bible in his hand a few times. Amy says, John, Ozzy did an interview and he said he believed in God. That's good. Aaron says, and Bryce, you can leave again. Ain't nobody talking about you. And Amanda said,
Bryce, you got your ass booted once. Don't think it won't happen again.
It's me says, yikes, not again. Oh, you thought wrong. Amy says, Bryce, he's behind and reading the chat. So, yeah. Patty says, John, Ozzy Osbourne wanted to go back to their beloved England. The Osbournes wanted to go back to their beloved England. Amy says, it's not instant. He's reading the comments as he sees them, not as you type it. Correct. Yeah, I don't know why people have such trouble with that. It works just the way it looks like it works. Amy says, and he's ordered them to be released, the Epstein files. And the reason that he campaigned on it and then he has a different opinion now is because when you become president, you learn things that you don't know when you're a campaign candidate. When you're out there in the world, you think one thing, and then when you get in the office, you learn a different thing. That's why. And also, this goes way further than Epstein. Epstein is a character. I don't know if you're aware of this or not. Go back and watch Pinocchio from Disney World. From Disney. The 40s version. And you'll find a scene in there where they talk about the Pleasure Island and how little boys go there and they don't come back as little boys anymore. Epstein is a character that they place all of this on. He's the fall guy, as it were. But this evil has been around for thousands and thousands of years, and it will continue to be around after Epstein is long gone. Someone else will take up the mantle. Someone else will be in charge. Someone else will be the character. Someone was before Epstein. But the idea has been here forever. And nothing Trump does is going to change that. It's above him. If anything, him and Cash Patel and Dan Bongino have just realized that it's way bigger than taking one guy down or releasing one list. It's way bigger than that. And the whole house of cards is built on this evil. And if you pull it out, the whole thing will come crashing down. So I promise you, you will never, ever hear the truth of the matter. It will never come out. Much like the JFK assassination, you're never going to hear the truth of that. It's not going to happen. And John says, Patty, his resting place is in the garden in Britain. In his garden in Britain. Nice. He deserves that. Aaron says, truth. How many hammers do you need? Yeah, Bryce Olson seems to think he's pulled one over on us. He hasn't. Patty says, John, this will be good for Mrs. Sharon. I believe you're right. Amy says, taking another drink. Yes, this is going to be a long night with that cat. Trump was not buddies with Epstein. They're billionaires. They met each other. That's it. Again, Trump is the reason he got put in jail in the first place. After he was kicked out of Mar-a-Lago for trying to recruit his wait staff. You wouldn't know anything about that, though. John says, Patty, at least the grandkids go to see him. Talking about Ozzy Osbourne, not Jeffrey Epstein. What it is says, Bryce, what is it that you do to be self-supporting? He probably lives in his mama's basement. Patty says, John H., yes, I agree with you. Amy says, it was nice seeing Amy at Ozzy's funeral. His daughter from a different woman, not Sharon. I didn't know that. Amy says, that boot saved some of Jake's voice. And thanks, Amanda. I was tired of taking a drink. Thank you, Amy. John says, one thing, Ozzy loved his family, and they loved him. You could see it in Ozzy's eyes. Ozzy was a good dude. I mean, he played a role, obviously, but in real life, he was a good dude. Amanda says, LOL, Amy, I was sick of hearing his bullshit. Amy says, John, did you see the video of his grandson seeing him on TV? He was happy saying, Paw. It was so sweet. I saw that video. It was nice. Amy says, Jack's son. And John says, the Ozzy house is in Buckinghamshire. 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 How do you say that? Buckinghamshire. Close enough. Amy says, he definitely had an impact on the world. Yes, he did. And what it is says, you're out of here. Yep, you can only take so much. Aaron says, it was truth again with Bible Seeker. Yep. Patty says, John, I was watching the Osbournes actually binging on the show the day Ozzy died. The basement tapes. Nice. John says, Amy, I did. Brought a tear to my eye. It did bring a tear to my eye. What it is some people are just closed-minded and unteachable. I know. And that's a thing I'm tasked with, is having to deal with those people, because I want to teach them stuff. They don't want to learn. You just have to keep going. Amy says, Patty, I watched the show The Osbournes Want to Believe. It was okay for a paranormal crap. They got a paranormal show? I didn't even know about that show. What it is says, Amanda done pulled the ladder, so he'll never get out of the hole. Amy says, LOL, like a skunk stuck in a drainage ditch. And Amanda says,
LOL, what is it? I might not want him to get out of the hole.
what it is. Patty says, I don't watch paranormal crap. I don't either. I fell out of love with that a long time ago. I wanted to believe in it, and I was looking desperately trying to find something. But every time I watched one of those shows, it always ended the same way. What was that? Did you hear that? You know, never anything concrete. So I got tired of watching it. I used to love Discovery Channel and History Channel and Science Channel. I'd watch it religiously until I realized that everything I was watching was a cartoon and that none of the stuff was conclusive. It was all made up, all of it. And then they switched and started doing all the Bigfoot and paranormal stuff, and I just fell out of love with that. The last thing I watched on the Discovery Channel was a documentary about mermaids. And that was it, and I had enough. Amy says it's a 24-hour ban. Next time it'll be permanent removal with hide from channel. Patty says, I may have missed that episode. Linda Davis is here. Hello, Linda. She says, wow, you guys are still on? I just stopped in to hit the like button and say hi. Hi. Yep, I'm still here trying to get to the bottom of the chat. And wearing thin. I'm tired. But I'm going to hang on. Amy says, Patty, it's a unique genre. People believing in Bigfoot and ghosts, etc. And Amanda says,
My chat jumped. Oh, Linda, how was your day, hon?
Patty says, John, are you near Buckinghamshire? John says, I lived 4 streets away from Ozzy in the 70s. I never met him. Wow. What was that like? Was it like band practice over at the Ozzy's house? A lot of racket going on. Linda Davis says, I had to reschedule my plans, but Walter ended up coming for dinner, and he's headed back to Jersey now. Well, I'm glad you guys got to have dinner. Was that enjoyable? Patty says, John, wow, that's so interesting. Amanda says,
That's good. Oh, Linda, well, how was dinner?
you can say it like you say it. You don't have to actually read the chat. You are talking to her directly. And Linda says, I think it was good. And he got to see the kids. That's something, right? That's some kind of step in the right direction, I guess. And John says, hi, Linda Hart. That's for both of you. Thumbs up. And what it is says, I got a GED, but I barely know how to spell it. Yeah. Well, what it is, believe it or not, you're probably smarter than most people that have a 4-year degree. And Patty says, John, was that in Birmingham? And John says, Patty, yes, I was a kid. Lady B says, hey, Linda, nice to see you, dear. Amy says, spelling and grammar is a skill set, just like the trades. You use the ones useful in your field. You are correct. Linda says, hey, Lady B, good to see you. And Amy says, education does not equate to intelligence. My husband could not spell, but he could fix anything. Well, that's another problem we have in this culture that we live in, that people equate education with intelligence. That's what they sell. All the colleges will have you believe that if you get an education, you'll be this smart thing at the end of it. Not true. I know a lot of people that are college dropouts that are the smartest people in the world. In fact, some of the richest people in the world are college dropouts. It's a lie. If you want an education, never let school get in the way of your education. Always go out and try to learn something. That's how you get an education. Lady B says, Linda, heart, mystery heart, vibrating heart, pierced heart. Amy says, hi, Linda. And Debbie says, I am disappointed in myself. I have a very old Mickey Mouse watch, and I never made that connection with 6:30, that correlation with him playing with himself. But now you know, and knowing is half the battle. Amy says, LOL, Debbie. And Linda says, hi, Amy Hart. And Amanda says,
I know a lot of educated people that are dumb as hell.
Me too. It seems like it makes them dumber in some cases.
Yes.
I much prefer a guy who is world traveled and knows a thing or two about things because he's lived it. That seems to be more in line with intelligent thinking in my book. Patty says, well, it's been fun. Gotta run. Thank you guys for another Saturday with good company and good night. Peace. Patty, thank you for putting up with us. We love you, honey. We'll see you for Bible study tomorrow, yes? Have a great night. We love you. I ain't far behind you. I'm about to fall asleep as we sit here talking. Amanda says, good night, Patty. And Amy says, see you at Bible study, Patty. Love you. John says, good night, Patty. Take care, heart. Kevin says, good night, Patty. Amy says, Magic 8 Ball is truth, actually, Bryce. You got to say it the proper way. Exclamation 8 Ball. Slavicking says, do a backflip for 100 likes. There you go. That's the only backflip you're getting from me. Amy says, you first, Slavic. Amy says, 8 Ball, is Bryce actually truth? 8 Ball says, don't bet on it. Amy says, 8 Ball, is Bryce actually truth? 8 Ball says, 9. Amy says, LOL. Aaron says, Slav, have you seen Speed do one? Amy says, smiley face with breasticles. You remember. Nice. Aaron says, well, you are eating cheese, Amy. LOL. Kids are cool too, says, I subbed. Well, that's weird. I don't see that you subbed, but thank you. Maybe it'll pop up here eventually. Amanda says, thanks, kid. Amy says, thanks for the sub, kids. And welcome to the show. Kids are cool too. 235. Lady B says, random celebrity fact that most don't care about. Liam Neeson and Pamela Anderson are dating. I never saw that coming. Nope. This doesn't matter, in my opinion. I'm sorry. Lamau. Oh, yeah, I saw that coming. They're in a movie together. That's what happens when you're in movies together. Amy says, I did not know that. He's a widower. It was sad about his wife. Aaron says, maybe she's trying to get taken to the bedroom. I have a very particular set of skills. John says, I'm going to say goodnight, everybody. Much love. I sort my ear out. It's like an alien film. Slime. It's horrible, John. Please take care of that. We love you. Thank you for being here. And God bless you, kind sir. And your ear. Lady B says, certainly was. He loved her a lot. They were together forever. Like he had one wife through all of that fame. I didn't know she had died, but it's cool that he's dating Pamela Anderson. She's a good girl. And apparently she gets down on it, you know what I'm saying? I saw a video once. Pretty sure it was her. And Amanda says, LOL, Aaron. And Kevin says, good night, John. Aaron says, he has a very special set of skills. Yes. Cunning linguist he is. Amy says, night, Nugget. And Amanda says,
Night Nugget.
oh, it sounded sweet. And then my chat jumped. Hang on.
What it is says, Amy said breasticles.
Breasticles. What number is it?
1117.
1117. Breasticles. Well, thank you, Michael Rose. McCallum Rose, however you say that. Amy says, hi, Michael Bros, McCallum Bros, Michael Labros. Please refer to the 10 Commandments, the one about idols, but glad you're here. Right on. And Amanda says, don't repeat yourself, Micro. Or Miko, however you say that. Mikola Bros. What it is says, flukes, spooks, cockle shells, and lizard shit. Amy says, LOL, what it is. And moo-moos are comfortable. I'll take your word for it. What it is says, hell, just get naked and take a wind bath outside. Been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, what it is. Amanda says, yes, Amy, I love them. And makes for quick, easy access. I better not ever see you in a moo-moo.
What's wrong with moo-moos?
Think about it. Debbie says, yep, I vote yes for the fake ninnies. I'll give you real ninnies. How about that? Amy says, LOL, Debbie. And Amanda says,
Oh, you just lost me. I saw ninnies. LOL, Debbie. Real ninnies. Real ninnies. I saw real ninnies.
Right there. John H. says, I heard the U2. Heard the U2. I heard the U2 pickle. What? You heard the U2 pickle? What were they saying? Uno, dos, tres, cuatro? Amy says, LOL, Nugget. And Amanda says, LOL, Nugget. Frank Affa says, is it all matter? If it is true, what do you do? It is unfortunate. I don't know what you're talking about. That you remain just a cog? I don't know. I don't know what you're asking there, Frank. But welcome to the show. Amy says, Via Diablo Licon, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus Christ. I rebuke you. Right on. Debbie says, I don't have to like the person that is president, but I will always respect the office of president, and I vote policy, not person. My vote for Trump was not a love letter to Trump. I agree. 100%, Debbie. I liked what his policies were. I liked what he was paying attention to, something the other presidents had dropped the ball on. And you don't have to like the man. I don't know why people think you have to. That's weird. Lady B says, I remember. Debbie says, Dover, prove it. Dover, is your first name Ben? And Amanda says, how do you know that, Dover? Were you there? Well, then, you have no business being here, Dover. So, goodbye. Amy says, Dover, is your first name Ben? Smiley face. Aaron says, you forgot the Ben part in front of the Dover that boots in his ass. Lady B says, right out of college, I couldn't get a position because they wanted experience. Nobody at that time would hire me to get the experience. It was a frustrating time. Yes, which is why it's more important. This is my advice to all young people out there. If you want to be a good employee, go to school, go to college, get your degree, and go start at an entry-level position and work your way up in a company and become a good employee. If you want to run the company, quit school and start the company. You will learn way more developing a company that does a job than you will studying that job in college. Believe that. You'll have no choice but to do it right, or you'll fail. But if you want to start the company, you got to quit school and go start the company and put all your effort into learning the job, and then you will be a good boss man, not a good employee. Amy says, exactly, Lady B. Amy says, if Jake's voice is getting worse, Amanda can read the woman's comments. I don't have a problem with that. And John says, breaking news, New York City earthquake warning. Really? Aaron says, really? And Amanda says, wow, Nugget. Amy says, thanks, Nugget. I need to check on family that lives there. Right on. Misguided Angel, ask your question. And John says 3.0 reported. Well, they're not used to getting earthquakes in New York City, so that's probably devastating to them. A 3.0 is just a little vibration. It's not that bad, but I'm sure it scared the bejesus out of all of them. Amy says 3.0, we have those in Indiana. Yeah, but they don't in New York. So that's probably scary to them. And Amanda says, ask Misguided. That's what I expected. Amy says, Bible study is on Sunday and Monday. Yes, it is. Joseph the Snail, welcome to the show. Just dropping in to say hello to random streamers that pop up through scrolling. Hi. Be careful. You might find something that you actually like, Joseph. Come on in and stay a little while. See if you like what's going on. And Amanda says, take that trash elsewhere, Misguided. And hi, Joseph. Matt, let it come crashing down. Matt, it is going to come crashing down. You have no worries about that. Or are you talking about New York? Amy says, hi, Joseph the Snail. You're welcome to stay. Right on. Amanda says, how's that misguided? Amy says, I got him, Amanda. So did I. I think we all tag teamed him. Amanda says, thanks, Amy. Batshit Crazy says, buggery. Middle Eastern cultures are known for this. And others, T. Looking. I don't know what you're saying there, Batshit. Kevin says, question for Jake. Is it wrong to wish harm on people that invented COVID? It's wrong to wish harm on anybody, Kevin. But it is understandable and justifiable for you to think that way. I wish justice on those that invented COVID. And I hope that they get what's coming to them. But vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, so let the Lord handle that. And your conscience will be clean of it. Just let God handle the riffraff. Amy says, Kevin, maybe word it differently, asking for judgment instead of harm. But that is a good question. Yes, it is. And John says, you said it right, Jake. Thank you, sir. Shire can be separate word like village or etc. Says batshit. Right on. What was it? Buckinghamshire? Batshit Crazy says Worcestershire. Which apparently people in America have trouble saying because they say Worcestershire. That's not what that word says. It's Worcester. I don't know how they pronounce it, but that's what it says. Worcestershire. And Debbie says, Amy, Kelly, and Jack are all Sharon's kids with Ozzy. Paul Weeks, welcome to the show. He says, I'm fortunate enough for going 3 different Ozfests. That is fortunate. That's fantastic, Paul. I never got a chance to see Ozzy perform. I was always performing while he was performing, so I never got a chance to see him in action. I've been close to him, though. I was at Ozfest one year. Amy says, thanks for the correction, Debbie. I always thought Amy was from a different woman. And John says, Amy did not want to be filmed. And Debbie says, Amy, nope. Sharon talked about Amy all the time when she was on the talk. Amy just chose to not be on the reality show. Interesting. Yeah, I think Trump has a kid like that, too, that just stays in the background. But she is from a different mother, but I think all of his kids are in the limelight except for one. And I think she's like an author or something. I can't remember what she does, but something outside of show business. Amanda says,
My chat jumped. I don't know where I'm at.
Sharon and Ozzy were married 43 years. They have 3 kids, and Ozzy has 3 kids with his first wife. Amy says, good to know. I don't watch those kind of shows. I don't either. Yep, if I wanted reality, I wouldn't be watching TV. I'd go live life. So I don't like watching fake reality. And John says, Amy, Amy was from his first wife, but Sharon classed her as hers as well. Maybe. Janice Jing says, things ramping up. Bible prophecies, World War III. Janice, you're not wrong. Welcome to the show. ONOPCOC? What does that mean? ONOPCOC? Ono Peacock? What does that mean? Janice Jing. Am I saying that right? Is it Jing or Zhong? Amanda says,
Ozzy had 3 children with his wife, Sharon. Amy, Kelly, and Jack were the 3 with Sharon, children with his first wife, and then Thelma Riley. He had 3 kids with her also.
interesting. Amy says, a lot of begetting. Yeah, I envy people like that. I only got 2 out. And all my years of philandering and women going left and right, I only managed 2 kids. I'm kind of upset about that. I really wish I had 12 or 13 of them. Not much chance for when things go wrong, you know what I'm saying? John says, Jake will still be reading tomorrow. That's the kind of dedication I have to you guys, John. I love you all that much. I work hard for my money, man. Hard for my money.
And it is tomorrow.
And it's already tomorrow, so yep. Amy says, tomorrow will be in 9 minutes. She said that 9 minutes ago. Ha! 19 minutes ago. John says, my tomorrow, Amy. Amy says, and John is still here. And John says, it's only 5 in the morning here, Amy. Good night. Heart, heart. John, stay as long as you want, buddy. I love you. Amy says, get some sleep, John. And Amanda says, good night, Nugget. Amy says, moo-moos or just sundresses? I like sundresses. Amanda says, I saw ninnies, real ninnies. And Debbie says, Liam's wife died after she hit her head skiing. The hotel staff tried to get her to go to the ER, but she said no and went to her room to take a nap and did not wake up. She had a concussion. That went bad. Charles Brown said hi. Hey, Charles Brown, sorry about the football thing, man. You'll get it one day. You just keep trying. Don't let that bitch Peppermint give you any shit. Amanda says, hi, Charles. And Amy says, hi, Charles. Welcome back. Amy says, did anyone ever hear from April? Not today. And Amanda says, no, Amy, she's got issues going on. Amy says, hugs to April. And good night, Jake and Amanda and everyone. See you at Bible study tomorrow. Good night, sweetheart. Thank you for being here and all your hard work. I love you. Have a great night. Get her done says, Earth is flat, y'all. Don't believe the Dems. It's flat. Well, get her done. As far as you're concerned, you're absolutely right. It is flat. You will never see it curve. So it's flat for you. Amanda says, good night, Amy, hun. And prove it, get her done. And get her done says, Google it. It's flat. Amanda says, Google's a lie. Sherrar says, hi, man. What's up, Sherrar? Get her done says, don't believe all the lies. Dems want you to think it's round. We all know it's flat. Debbie says, if the worst Chester in Shire tastes that good, I wonder what the best Chester tastes like. Like a hotel, I would guess. Nice observation. I like that. Amanda says, and technically the Earth is roughly a sphere. Well, the gas that surrounds Earth is a sphere. The material that the Earth is made out of itself looks more like a piece of gravel. It has flat spots and edges. Amy says, what's flat? Get her done. Don't look at my boobies. And hi, sure are. Amy says, I'll stay to the end. Well, thank you, Amy. God bless you. Amanda says, LOL, Amy just can't leave us. And John says, I know. Can't wait to see what's going to happen next. Here on Untethered Live Politi-tics. Yes. Amy says, sharing a muffin with my chihuahua. Lucky chihuahua. Debbie says, everybody needs to stop talking. Amanda wants her 6 inches. I keep telling you. I'll give her all of it. 6 inches ain't enough. Amanda says, LOL, 6 inches at a time. Amy says, I'm eating a blueberry muffin and sharing it with my dog. Nice. My dog is out on the porch, thinking we don't love her anymore. Amanda says, yummy, Amy. Deep South forever. I'm with you in solidarity, Deep South. Anybody that don't believe the earth is flat is a moron. Well, you lost me there, Deep. You don't know what it is because you've never seen it. Only a moron would believe something they've never seen. Amy says, almost there. And Amanda says, it's flat in spots. I have read the Bible Deep South. They use the word circle to describe the earth. Circle, not disc. What it is, says Amy, I could determine if your boobies are around. What it is says, let me take a look at them. I'll tell you if they're round or not. And John says, big, large cucumber. Yes, I am. Thank you for noticing. Amanda says, no, you read the Bible, it's not. We study the Bible on this channel. And Amanda says, yes, Nugget. And Deep South says, I've spoken to God himself about it. That's all the proof I need. Deep South, need I refer you to one of the commandments? Thou shalt not take the Lord's name in vain. And what that means is you should not tell people that God said a thing to you when he did not say a thing to you. You are actively breaking one of the commandments right now. I pray for you, and I hope that you repent and move away from that sin. And if you want real proof, come tomorrow night. I'll teach you about God. And Amanda says Isaiah 40:22, which mentions the circle of the earth, which suggests a spherical shape. John says, I'm going to sleep now. It's daylight. Me too, John. Thank you all for being here tonight. God bless each and every one of you. I had a great night and a great conversation. I enjoy it every Saturday. Come on back if you ever want to try again. I done told you once, you son of a gun, I'm the best there's ever been. Have a great night. I'll see you tomorrow night for Bible study. Thank you for watching.